Hello and welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan. Today I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Double Alex,
We rise
Hello.
again.
Wyatt, and Brett.
Hello.
Oh,
You're paired together now. I don't know why, but I just felt like that
It
was
was
the vibe
inevitable.
Oh
It
no,
was
we're doing
inevitable.
group projects. Oh crap.
tonight. Yep, you're in group project mode. I hope you enjoy group projects. All right. So today we have an annual tradition here where we'd like to do a roundup of the last year of video games. Specifically, give out funky little awards to games that we liked and didn't like. I know we've all picked some. I know everyone has their favorites in this horse race of video games. And we're going to jump through a number of them, as many as we can, because every year we have too many awards and can't go through them all. So we're going to follow that tradition again. It takes far too long, and that's with cutting half of the awards.
yeah.
Because we're like, that's already talked about
boy.
them. So we're going to go through our big list of normal stuff, leading up to eventually our personal games of the year. This is 2024 video games. I think actually this year most of them are actually from 2024, which is surprising. Typically we have a lot of games from very all over in terms of time span, because we don't limit ourselves
fill
this
in
year.
with some games that were older, but try to keep them mostly.
All
right.
right. Let it be said from me, the person that does it all the time. It's not like you're not allowed to have games from past years. It just makes more sense for people watching to have things from the year that we're doing the awards for.
Yep.
Sometimes it's nice to have games from other years just so that like you kind of get a view of what we actually play in a year versus just
Yeah,
like
sometimes
trying to
they're
chase
so
whatever's
good.
new. Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, I hope we're all satisfied with that discussion of what we do with this little thing that went on far longer than I had initially intended.
What a wonderful preamble.
We got a lot to get to tonight.
We had a lot to get to. We had a lot of
Get
things
moving.
and stuff. And I'm gonna fix. This is like at a weird angle. There we go. We're good. Okay, so we're gonna start off with most memorable because I think this is always a fun one to get us started with. And I'm gonna go later in this because the game that I have things to say about. I know why it does as well. I want someone else here. What's your most memorable game?
I'll go first. So I picked Neva, and that's a lot of that is because like so much of the story, because it's told visually, just there are moments where it was like awe-inspiring, and it kind of because it kind of blends in with the environment, the color, use of color and everything. There are so many moments that like stick out in my mind, so many visuals that stick out in my mind, not just because they're pretty, but because it also is telling a story through those kind of moments at the same time. It's just so like I think I've mentioned it before, but I was abusing my PS5 share button because I was just like
Really
so
slamming
many
that thing.
screenshots and so many and a lot of those are gonna stick in my brain for a very very long time. And yeah, it was just wonderful.
Good. Okay. Who else is ready?
I suppose I'll follow up with something not really surprising because I think in the past episode where we went through that whole chart of a couple of our games that were our favorites in different ways, and Persona 3 did appear, and I did play the remake, and it is just as good in all the ways that the old one is. And it's if you know what happens, you know why. It's a memorable story, and they played up the nostalgia for people that played the original, and they succeeded in both replicating all the hard hitting moments and in kind of making them a little bit better in certain ways. So purely because it's a remake of one of my favorite game stories. I wasn't going to forget this game anyway, but I will extra not forget it now because I played it again.
Now there's a quote unquote modern version.
Yeah, I know, as if it needs
As
to,
if it was not
that's
a
another
modern
discussion.
It's like them remaking The Last of Us 1.
They would never do that.
PS2 to PS5 is a pretty big jump in terms of
That was
time span.
There was no way that's a PS2 game, really?
Persona 3, yeah.
Oh, I
Those
thought you were
things are
talking about The Last
PS2
of Us.
No, we're talking about the topic, not whatever you
Okay.
were saying. We're talking about
That
the
is the
topic.
best looking
that we're in.
PS2 game I've ever seen.
Yeah, holy
What?
shit. That would set PS2s aflame, dude. Are you kidding me?
It
Yeah,
shoot
yeah,
off
it runs on the
into
PS2 when you replace
atmosphere.
all of the
God.
hardware with that of a PS3.
Speaking of a good-looking PS2 game, I think now
Oh
I
my
have to jump in
God.
with Wanted Dead.
Let's
my
go.
God.
Game of the year. So you gave me too good of a segue. There's a video up of Wyatt and I playing the first like hour and a half of this game.
Well,
And
let's
I
be
don't-
clear. You were playing it, and I was.
Wyatt was the peanut
the
gallery.
game was happening to me as well.
Wanted Dead is one of the video games of all time, and I think
Oh, boy.
it is maybe the most like bad good video game I've ever played. It's one of those
Most
games. You're
bad
just-
good video game?
yeah, bad good video game.
Not the most good bad video game.
Is there a difference?
Continue.
Yes.
Continue.
It's-
We have so many awards to get to.
we have a lot to get through. Wanted Dead deserves a lot of time though because it's very special, and it's very special because it's absolutely insane. Every cutscene was some fresh insanity that Wyatt and I had to try and comprehend.
Yeah.
I think the gameplay was actually legitimately pretty fun. There was a big combat update, I think, right before we played it. So it actually felt pretty decently good compared to, I think, what a lot of the early reviews had for it. I had a good time with it. I still intend to go back to it at some point and play more. There's a lot of video games, but Wanted Dead sits in my head every day, and I think about it constantly, even from just that hour.
Every time someone spoke or moved or did anything, I was reminded of like subpar source filmmaker stuff
Yeah.
that you would see like 10 years ago.
Like
Like,
Gary's Mod
God.
animations.
yeah,
my
it's
God.
wild. Wild. And just like just insanity throughout. Like barely it's one of those things where like what's happening on screen kind of feels like you're watching someone's dream, at least from what I remember, because it's been a while since I watched you play it, right? But it just felt like the kind of connective thread with everything was so thin, and it's just like, what are we doing? What's happening? Someone please tell me what's going on. And I just felt so confused the whole time.
Yeah. Very, very good. Right.
We love it. It's awful. We love it.
Let's move on to our biggest surprise of the year.
Oh wait, we skipped Alex W.
Oh, Alex W. That's because you put a not a video game.
I put not a video game, and that's
It's still
true.
there.
I was looking at my like longest playtime in Steam, and I was like, "Yo, this game's good, and it's really memorable, and there's no game to it. It's
That's true, we
Tailspire,
did-
and that's
is
literally
very
just
good.
like a virtual tabletop, and I thought it was incredibly good, and it helped facilitate some of my most memorable game playing.
Yeah, we
That
did.
actually wasn't a computer game, but Dungeons and Dragons.
We did finish my first ever like full D&D campaign on
Me
Tailspire.
too.
Oh,
I've been
Nice.
playing since for like 10 to 15 years, and I've never finished one before now.
I'm nothing if not consistent. Yeah, Tailspire is super cool. It's a very intuitive tool for D&D stuff, and it's really multi-purpose. If you still kind of need to use outside tracking stuff for your character sheets and whatnot, but
Yeah.
if you don't need all the fancy VTT like one button things that some other things can do, it's super helpful as a map tool.
I don't know. I mean, this is fancy in all like the other graphical regards.
Oh, it looks way better than every other VTT, I think. All right, let's move on to biggest surprise. Alex W., I'm going to start with you, just so I can go down the line.
Okay.
And make this easy on ourselves.
This one's a game I've actually been playing a lot of recently. My biggest surprise was Marvel Rivals. I wanted this game to be good, but I really didn't expect it to at all. And I definitely didn't expect it to... Like, I didn't expect to play and enjoy any hero shooter Overwatch-like game again, ever, probably. It just... I think I was done with the genre, and then I played this, and it reminded me that there was a lot of fun to be had in those games, and so I've been playing a decent bit recently, and really caught me by surprise because I didn't expect it to be good.
Yeah, I had a good time with it too. I haven't really played much more of it aside from what we played, but I did really enjoy what I did play.
They've had some new characters that are a lot of fun.
All right, Brett.
Um. Well, I, as big of a fanboy for Indiana Jones as I have been for my entire life, I was like, okay, you know, people, people shit on the newer movies so often. You know, whether they're actually good or bad is another thing. But like, I don't know. It's like a modern like movie tie-in like game kind of, and I'm like, I don't know, I've never played anything by these people before. I know they made Wolfensteins and those are good, but then the newest one was really bad, and I don't know anything about the specifics of that because I have not played any of their games. But then I played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and I was made very happy from something that I was not too sure on. I think uh, if well, I'll put it this way, if the bar to entry wasn't lowered a little bit for me, and that made it easier to afford, I probably wouldn't have even snagged it in the first place as quickly as I did to when it came out. But I'm glad that I did because it's really competently made, which is just like I even just from starting the game out. I mean, this is what happens when you turn the game on, so it's not really a spoiler. But they just do like a first-person view of the intro of Raiders of the Lost Ark,
It's so
and
cool.
it's not like one to one
so
or
cool.
anything, but it's so cool.
It's
And that's like
almost
It's
one
really
to
yeah,
one.
it's almost
And
one
the
to
cool
one.
thing too,
it's
the cool,
close. It's close.
the cool thing too is that it's such a cool part of the game, and I would also argue it's the worst part of the game, but it's
And
also
I would agree.
still really cool.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. And just like
I
going
do
through
think
and
it's
being
a
like, wow, the beginning of this movie works really well as a tutorial.
Yeah,
Because I
for
didn't
sure.
really have to slow it down at all, and it taught you everything. It was
I'm
Yeah.
kind
awesome.
of glad they went with a familiar scene for the tutorial as well, because then once you get into the new plot, it never had to sit there
Yes, yeah.
stagnant and give you a tutorial for 15 minutes.
Yeah, and all I'll say is you'll be hearing more from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle later.
I
Because
think a lot of us
I
have
really
things to
like
say
Also,
it.
about this game that are really good.
I'll say this: your reasonings for it being a surprise is totally like valid. For me, it wasn't a surprise because I love those Wolfenstein
Yeah,
games to
yeah.
death, and I will say I thought it was weird that they were going for kind of like a immersive sim almost. I was like, oh, this is kind of out of their wheelhouse. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is by Machine Games, who's originally formed from a bunch of prior Starbreeze developers, who, if you remember, they also did the Chronicles of Riddick games, which are really good
Oh,
immersive
okay,
sim games.
okay.
Ooh.
So now I'm like, oh,
Ooh.
okay, this is actually totally fine.
And
Now
those
we
are
move back
like some
around.
of like the best movie tie-in games ever, really.
Yeah.
So
So
that actually, yeah, that makes a lot
it
of
actually
sense.
works out even more perfectly.
That's true.
All right, very
Right?
good, Wyatt.
Yeah, so I went with Abiotic Factor. For a couple of reasons. One, it was genuinely a surprise because before we had played it on the podcast, had not heard of it whatsoever. It was a complete unknown to me before then. Um, but it was also a surprise just because I'm not really into like survival games that much. And while I thought the like laboratory setting was kind of interesting, I wasn't really sure as to whether it was gonna hold my interest for that long. Um, but I was actually really surprised because the kind of like we're a bunch of dweeby scientists kind of slapping together a bunch of high-tech weapons because we're just that smart was actually really endearing. And the lo-fi almost like PlayStation 1, I want to say, like art style was also super endearing. And I ended up playing it for a lot longer than I thought I was going to. Not solo, with friends. I don't think I would have played it solo, but
Yeah, we're still keeping
um,
that video save going from the one that we did in the video. We
yeah.
continued to play
Um,
that.
but I was just it kept unraveling and adding cooler and kind of stranger stuff, and it always kept my interest with something, which I was very surprised by because, like I said, not super into a lot of survival games.
Yeah, we got to pull you back in too for what Kyle and I just found, because we found a bunch of
I know I
crazy
have been on
stuff.
I have been on a
Um,
break, unfortunately.
It's a very, very cool game. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of my favorites. I think the main reason it didn't get put on here is we've played most of that after the turn of the year, so I didn't include it in my own stuff. But yeah, very fun game. Okay, Alex.
Enshrouded is my biggest surprise, and not necessarily just the game itself. It's been in early access for a little while. But biggest surprise of 2024 was them launching their fourth update, which doubled the size of the map
Yeah,
and
That's pretty
doubled
fun.
all the content in the game with a new biome. They just
there's already a lot of stuff in that
keep
game
improving
too
on
in the early access
It's
launch.
wild.
Yeah.
It was very much like Valheim and Abiotic Factor are the two other good examples of like these survival-y games that just had a ton of content when they entered early access, and are just getting more and more. So
Yeah,
And
it's
already a ton of
wild.
polish as
yeah,
well.
Oh yeah.
Like I think with all three of these games, it's an example of like if they had just packaged it as full release, I don't think there would be a lot of people complaining.
yeah, I think people
Like they're
would generally
that
be pretty
polished.
happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not on the final spot of this list, so I picked Megaton Musashi W, which I think is a crazy game that most people here probably haven't heard of aside from Brett, because it is a like mech action game uh, based on a franchise that really only made it in Japan for a little while. And eventually, like, there were multiple games released in Japan. We didn't get any of them. And then one of them was like a phone gotcha game. And then Megaton Musashi W comes to the West, which is like a collection of these three games remastered and like put into a complete package, essentially. And it's really good. It's like a really good mech. It has every anime trope from a mech show that you could possibly imagine, and somehow manages to integrate them all pretty well. And it's just really fun to have like the way that the game sets itself up is just so entertaining. It plays a lot like a Gundam Breaker or something, but the things that I've really enjoyed that were super surprising to me is that you have multiple pilots and like mech combos, so you pick a pilot and mech, and like the mechs behave differently. So some of them are Pacific Rim style, where you have to have two pilots for them to operate. Some of them are like, oh, you have the one dude who can do both because he's got psychic powers or something. And it's really fun because they'll have the whole establishing shots and like the crazy. If you've ever seen a mech show, it's always got the whole reveal the new mech thing, and it does that constantly. Yeah, just a super fun, really surprising game. It's like a low budget mech thing, but if you're at all interested in like mecha games, it is 100% worth checking out.
Yeah, I need to play that shit.
Cool.
Very good. All right, I'm actually going to move us down the list into our first community award, which just means from someone that wasn't me on this list.
What a community it is.
What a community it is, because we have a Most Fun with Friends award. I think this is very fitting after having mentioned Abiotic Factor and Enshrouded and a few other games that we've all played together. So, Alex, what was your most fun with friends in the past year?
Which one?
W.
The one at the end.
Oh,
The one at
Oh,
the
well,
side of the
we're-
list, so
we're
we can go
keeping-
down
we're
the
keeping
list.
with that
Yep.
order. Okay.
Okay, I'm
'Cause that makes
picking
things
this
easier.
one. Helldivers 2. I actually haven't played this one with friends as much as I'd like to, but what a great release, and what a great multiplayer that game has made. I feel like infinitely more fun by playing it in multiplayer with your friends,
sure.
because when you shoot your friend, it's pretty funny. That's kind of
Nice.
it, you know. I mean, like, the game is good, and when you lose in multiplayer, somehow it's still fun. You know.
Always a
That's
good
very
sign.
rare.
Okay, Brett.
I don't know how much I've talked about this game. Mostly because I haven't been able to be on very much this year until now, or this past year until right now. But Rabbit and Steel came out to just like the absolute insane fan acclaim, and basically what it is just the raid gameplay of Final Fantasy 14
Yep.
in the form of a bunny shoot 'em up with really hard bosses and really fun little roguelike like buffs and pieces of gear that you can pick up that actually like
Ooh.
do change beyond just having like 0.04% fire resistance. And you can craft whole crazy different builds that, you know, bounce off not only just your base movements as all your different classes that you can play as, but that also bounce off your 2 or 3 different friends, different abilities and classes that they're playing. Because this is a 4-player max game. It is really, really fun to sit there and just completely suck with 2 or 3 other people as you learn the patterns for the boss that you're going to be, stuck on for the next couple days.
Oh boy! Wow.
Because playing on, there's just certain. I remember there's like this red dragon boss in like the wizard scholarly area, who I'd still hate because she's very, very difficult. And I don't think we ever really got good at fighting her, but there was just like it's those moments where they're definitely in Helldivers also, where it's just like you're just there's one guy left, everybody else is down, he's on his last tick of health, and there's just like we could totally win, but the balance between that victory and dying yet again is just so like it's so frantic, and those moments come up so often. And for a little game like this, where it's made by just one person, it's pretty sick. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, really cool game. It's supposed to get DLC soon too, I think.
Yes,
I'd never heard of it before.
it's very fun.
Yeah,
We need to do an
absolutely.
episode for it.
Look, I have it too. It's great.
Oh, I need to pick it up.
All right.
Oh, that's the other game.
What?
All right.
You're up next.
So we've talked about the finals a couple times on this show. We've played the finals on this show a couple times. I can't properly describe the shot of pure adrenaline and euphoria that this game can give you. It's indescribable, actually.
It's true.
This
Are we
this
allowed
game-
to on Twitch?
This game will alter your brain chemistry in a way that few games can. When you're having a good match, and we'll get back to that in a second. But this game is so much fun. Just like the most fun you'll get is like the crazy comebacks or like plays that you did not think were going to work out at all, but somehow worked out perfectly, even though the odds were completely stacked against you. It's so addicting. And so much better with friends because I feel like it allows you to pull off these insane maneuvers more when you're
The
communicating
really
with
fun
people.
trios game.
Oh my god, it's actually hard to describe.
Two
Like,
mediums, one heavy.
the highs in this game are incredibly high, but boy howdy, let me tell you, the lows can be just as
The lows
it
also
hurts.
alter your brain chemistry.
But man, when you have a good night, especially with like 2 or 3 other friends, it's unlike anything else you're gonna play. It's so much fun.
Super fun. Yeah, we've stayed addicted to the finals, I think, ever since it came out. So
Me especially,
Yeah,
it's
pretty
bad.
much.
It's
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, it's bad.
all right.
It's bad.
Alex.
Picture this: Gang Beast, but polished and with actual UI.
It doesn't crash constantly too.
Doesn't crash constantly
Yeah.
too, yeah.
It's the unfortunate truth of gang beasts.
And then you get party animals, which is just an adorable way to bash your friends' skulls in and watch them ragdoll. Throw them in front of a train, throw them off an airplane, hit them with a traffic cone. There's a bunch more like actual weapons in Party Animals than there are Gang Beasts too. There's just like there's a stun gun, crossbow. Oh my god, it's wonderful. Ragdoll fighting fun.
Yeah, it's very good. This is a game that I've played a ton, both with friends and coworkers, and it's a super good party game basically that you just run around. And
For some reason, I thought you were going to say with friends and with
And
enemies.
enemies.
yeah, with friends and with enemies.
That's so too.
Many the same people. Yeah, great game.
Depends on the match.
It's also got like an insane amount of other modes now. There's like a pirate horde mode. There's a Mario Kart style kart game.
Mario Kart, yeah.
And it's like legitimately good. That's there's not many tracks, but it is like
Is there a
legitimately
Rocket
a
League
good.
mode, or was I?
Yeah, there's a Rocket League
Fat
style
mention.
mode. Tons of stuff in there that's just super fun to play. Yeah, I think Party Animals is one of the best, like, if you just need a game to appeal to a group of like 8 people, Party Animals will do the job perfectly. It's super fun. All right. My pick for this was Mario Party Jamboree, and I want to set a scene here. I've played this game one time. Paid full price for it.
Oh,
Absolutely wonderful. This one time was meeting back up with a bunch of high school friends, and we then played, I think, about 6.5 hours of Mario Party in a row.
jeez.
oh my God.
Because Jamboree's really good. It's got all the best parts of Mario Party. It gets rid of a lot of the things that are just really annoying, but really doubles down on the insane like bullshittery that can happen in a Mario Party game, and it's just super fun. Like, it's a very, very fun game. I think the biggest like drawback to it is that it definitely feels like you need to play it with the higher turn counts for it to really work super well, because a couple of the maps have gimmicks that really need you to like go around it more than once.
So you're saying I need to play it for 6.5 hours?
Look, we played like 3
Oh, it's
games.
Monopoly. Okay.
Increasing the turn count every time.
Boy.
Jeez.
So you probably don't need to spend 6 hours in a row playing it. But yeah, it's super good. It's got a ton of like side modes. It's got like a whole mini campaign thing for single player. It just has a lot more content than every other recent Mario Party. And the mini games are just really good. I think they're generally super well designed, except for one really strange one where it's just there's 5 keys and there's 5 doors, and each key matches one of the doors maybe, and then one of them doesn't, and there is zero strategy in that game
way to
basically. It is just, unless there's something I'm missing, but that game is always very funny when it pops up just because of how absolutely insane it is, because nobody knows what's gonna happen.
And finding one of these kind of Mario Party style games, it's always fun, because as we've learned very recently, it's actually you can fuck these up in a major
We've all been a
way.
little traumatized by Dokapon Kingdom, who I think that game will probably make multiple of
boy.
our worst Game of the Year lists.
Yeah,
Hey,
even though
that's for
didn't come
2025.
out last year and we didn't play it last year, but this year
It did come out
my
last year because
God.
it's the remake. It's not
Oh,
the
the
original
port-
release, it's the re-release.
the port.
So it is
God.
a last year game, I think. But yeah, crazy, wild game. Can't necessarily recommend it. I'm still kind of convinced I should try the story mode because people keep telling me it's good. And I feel like I should get something out of the game.
Look, if you stay in the beginning area and grind up levels and get lucky with being able to go first in the turn order a
It's
good few
still
times,
really
I'm
boring.
sure it gets okayer.
Look, I'll save this all for a dissertation on why Dokapon is a problem later.
A whole ass TED talk.
My
Let's
God.
return to our main list here for best voice acting.
Uh-huh.
Alex, get us started.
This Alex?
You two are
Yeah,
gonna
we're
keep
always
asking
starting
this
with
every
you.
time.
Okay.
It is going to happen every single time.
It will.
Then no, I can get it from here. I can get it. We've done it
Yeah,
twice.
you got
I'll
it
make
now.
sure to ask next time.
So this is going to be, I think, our first repeat.
Oh.
This one I'm giving to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. If I didn't know it wasn't Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
I probably, it not only are all the side characters that I encountered really well voiced. I mean, the Troy Baker as Indiana Jones is really, really good. He clearly put in work, and it makes me almost instantaneously feel like I'm right there in the movie, totally immersed. I mean, I wouldn't
It's
have.
crazy.
I don't think it would have killed the game for me if somebody didn't sound like Harrison Ford. I think that the story that I played was good enough, but it like almost immediately I was like, whoa, I am Indiana Jones and I am like in a movie.
Well, it's funny too because like it's a great reminder of like it's a big old meme at this point that Troy Baker is in everything. He's in a lot of things, right? I am not gonna dispute that for a second, and it's kind of funny and it's kind of a meme, but you also just have to be reminded sometimes there's a reason he's in everything. It's because
Yeah,
genuinely he is just that good.
I feel like it's been a while since I've seen him in a role that he like completely disappears in.
I get that. Yeah.
Like he's what
Definitely.
Joel in The Last of Us, and that one I feel like he hardly sounds like himself.
Yeah.
But I've
I'm
since
always
seen
surprised
him
to
in
hear his
roles
singing
where
voice in oh, what was that musical game? The
You know the gods and they were all
Yes.
singing.
You came unprepared
Stray
with
Gods,
knowledge.
Stray Gods.
Stray Gods. That's what. Yeah.
I need like 2 details and I can get the game, but
but I just mean like this one, like I've seen a few games where he kind of just voices a character that's his voice. Not that it's bad, but
yeah.
you know, I heard it and I was like, oh, that's Troy Baker.
But he's got a really recognizable voice that I think
Because
you
he's in
can.
everything.
Yeah, he's in everything, but he's got like the Matt Mercer effect where you can kind of like.
Yeah.
There's always a baseline Troy Baker-ness to it, and he does a really good job of hiding that in Indiana Jones. Not to say that that's a bad thing. Like I think it's totally
not the
fine for
first-
voice actors to be
No, I mean,
recognizable.
perfect
but
example. I was watching a friend of mine play Infamous Second Son. He voices Delson, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, clearly it's Troy Baker. He's still doing a great job, but it is just kind of Troy Baker.
Mhm.
I feel like Indiana Jones and a couple of other games though he completely disappears into the role, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, Indiana Jones would have been my second pick for sure here. I wish I had finished it because at the time, because I think I probably would have been bumped up, but
I did not finish it, but I didn't play that many new games.
yeah, very very good pick. All right, Brett.
Well, this is the first time that Metaphor is going to be on the list. This is another one that's going to be showing up a bunch, but at least you got to give us a pass compared to the actual Game Awards because there's 5 different people sitting here right now, so we got to forgive some overlap. But
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. But I just for an aside, I do feel like we did a pretty good job of staving off the self repeats as far
Listen,
as we could this
For a
time.
while.
My 2 top games of the year, I could make a solid argument for every single category here.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's
the
why they're
exception
games of the year.
With the exception of this category, because neither of them had voice acting.
True. But Metaphor has a fantastic crew of voice actors behind it. I mean, every character has a recognizable way of speaking, whether it's like their accent or their emotion or like what weird like old English speak they give for them to use. But there's a lot of line delivery for just the really big impactful moments that is
Mhm.
I mean it makes them more impactful because they are spoken well, which I mean yeah, duh. But in a particularly exemplary way. I really for the companion that you have in just this type of game and your 100+ hour RPG, it's really easy for them to sound annoying and just be really grating, no matter how good the performance is, right? But I think Gallica is actually incredible, and her voice actress does a really good job of being kind of like the pokey proddy pixie character archetype, without being actually annoying in real life. And that must have been something they had to have talked about because it's so common in other games as a community complaint.
Mhm.
And I think they pulled it off because she's probably one of my favorite performances as a result. But yeah.
Yeah, I really really like the voice acting too from what I played of Metaphor. All right, what?
Yeah. So I picked Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden. For one main reason, but I mean everyone does such a great job. I feel like what most of the voice actors get across really well is just how tired everyone is, but in like a good way, because they're in such a tense, like shitty situation, and they're kind of like their exhaustion of that kind of comes through their performances really well. But what I wanted to highlight specifically are the two leads, Red and Antea. When they're talking together, there's such like a softness to their voice when they talk to each other, and I feel like it says so much, and really helps build their relationship a lot more, than than if that kind of emotion wasn't there otherwise. I still think it would have been good, but there's something about the way these two actors speak to each other, like it's so soft spoken, it's so gentle, and it really I think it adds so much to their relationship, which is one of the most important parts of the game for me. Like that was one of the things that they really had to nail, and I think just through the voice performances, it adds so much, and it's so well done.
Yeah, another game that I've played the start of, but not much further in, and it was very good.
Too many
Voice
games.
acting, especially I think for the main duo, was great.
Yeah.
All right, Alex.
Alrighty. Best voice acting for me, I went specifically for the character of Igon in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC.
Mm.
Oh, there has not been so much. From the games that I've played this year, at least, I have not seen that much emotion in lines in a while.
He gets
Especially
the
that much
Ben
loud
Star
emotion.
Award from Final Fantasy 16 for the best scream in a video game.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And he
Very
just
good.
keeps going.
Yeah, he's a great single character, and I love the focusing in on just one character.
Yeah.
From it, it's great. All right, for me, I picked Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think Rebirth was a really phenomenal cast of voice actors, especially being that a number of them are relative unknowns. At least in voice acting, a number of them I think are traditional actors and not voice actors, but do a really killer job at their roles. The entire main cast is excellent. The fact that Kate Sith, especially, who is the weird Irish
Yes.
cat, sounds as good as he does for being a weird Irish cat on a Moogle,
What?
is
Yes.
On a
so
Moogle?
good. Yeah, on a weird. They call it a Moogle. It doesn't look like a Moogle.
No, it just looks like a fat Moogle
It's
with
like a
open eyes. It
gigantic
doesn't even
Moogle
look
with big
right.
fists. It doesn't look
Yeah.
right. That's the point.
Who gave the Moogles fingers?
But like, especially the treatment of Kate Sith to me stands out because he's a character that is so inherently goofy and so like PS1, that to commit as hard as they did to making Kate Sith work in Rebirth, I think is a really impressive thing. And yeah, I think that generally the voices they chose for everyone work really well. The side characters are probably the only like, I don't want to say dark spot because I think they are generally pretty good, but there's definitely a few that feel more traditionally JRPG voice acted, more so than like really really well done mainline voice acting. And I think overall though the entire cast is so stacked with good talent, and they make so many of the really important scenes that needed to land. And I think especially like the this was true for remake as well, but Brianna White as Aerith is one of the best voice actresses I think I've ever heard, and continues to be that throughout Rebirth. All right, moving on to our next award, which is most obnoxious cast / character. Gotta
Hey,
get to
Ryan.
the fun ones now.
Hey Ryan, which Alex are we starting with?
Take a guess.
Let's start with Brett this time.
Ryan's gonna switch it up on
You
us
don't
if we
get the
keep
honor.
asking this. So for me, I put down my stupid friends in chain together.
You're gonna notice a pattern with this award.
That game was a lot of fun. I still haven't beat it, but man, oh man, there was times that it was really funny. My friends made it really funny. Other times I was incredibly frustrated. So yeah, they get the most obnoxious.
You know the great thing, Alex, is you're gonna have to play this again.
Yeah,
As a
that's
fan
part of our
something
group
fun.
punishment.
So
Okay, you
you
know,
can be our leader.
you can have a new group of friends for it. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll work together
Maybe we'll
really
win the
well
award
and beat
again.
it first try.
Can we decide who's in
Double.
what order in the chain?
I don't know.
No.
Oh,
Yes, but no. Depending too, because you can all be chained in a square.
oh,
That's fun. All right. So to that we got Brett.
Speaking of your friends, the ones that I'm referring to aren't real. Which, depending if that's different from what Alex W's friends are, well, remains to be seen. But mine at least are digital, and they're from Gundam Breaker 4. I, preface this by saying I enjoyed my time with Gundam Breaker 4, and I will return to it frequently for the customization, just because it's just such a good engine for like, "Oh, I don't know what this design is going to look like in a 3D space. I'm just going to block it out in Gundam Breaker, and the customization is good enough that if you're designing robots, you could do that. But also for planning kit bashing in real life, because it's designed like that. The story, however, to say it leaves much to be desired is an understatement. Um, I think, I hope that it just came out at a really bad time, and things like computer character or like NPC just being translated as AI was just a misinformed decision. Because what the story ends up being about is your friends really, really wanting to keep a game uh, uh, moving forward with this live service model via AI and with no human
oh
creation at
boy.
all.
Are we sure this
And
isn't just talking about the Gundam metaverse?
Oh
Yes, yeah, that's
no.
it's like tied into that. It's
You just
like,
said a bunch
and
of
it is
words that made me want to barf.
it's supposed to be like, oh, this like there's this like robot program girl or whatever in the game, within the game, who's like you like robots learning to be friends with people is not like the thing that I'm against here, because that's like a good storytelling thing that will be good as a thing that can be written well until the end of time, as long as it keeps being written well. But just like all of your friends just like touting like, oh, like we gotta help the AIs. Like, and the villain is like, you don't understand. Uh, the
Isn't that
games are only good because humanity makes them good, and they're only interesting because of the chaos inherent to human creation that makes them interesting. And it's
I,
like, yeah, dude, you're kind of right,
yeah,
actually. And
That's
your friends
kinda
are like,
correct.
no, we gotta.
yeah.
It's like, okay, I understand saving
Ooh.
this one program, Chan, but I don't fucking care about meta, dude. I don't care about Chat GPT. I want them all to blow up and die. I understand that's not what she is, but oh my god, it made me hate your cast of friends so much,
isn't
How
and I just
isn't
stopped
that
paying attention
kind
to the
of
story.
isn't there a weird part of the plot in like that most recent SD Gundam game all about like actually all of the Gundam stuff going on is a simulation and here's an AI girl to tell you about it?
I don't know. Like that's the thing, is that a lot of the Gundam games are like games within games, because like doing the single player MMO thing is a very popular thing to do for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. It's just very strange. I don't like the side characters in this game very much, as funny as they are to look at. Um, but whatever. They're there, I
Fun game to
guess.
play though.
Yes, very
Oh,
fun game to
very
play. You just
fun.
don't pay attention to what it's trying to say because it's not important.
All right. Wyatt.
All right, so I picked the pawns from Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, I want to be fair. I do want to be fair. The pawns have a lot of cool things going for them. All right. The fact that you can like hire other players' pawns or your friends' pawns and kind of save them and stuff is pretty cool. I like how you can combine a lot of different moves with them. Like one of them, you can like jump on their shield and they boost you up onto an
Yeah.
enemy or something like that. Cool stuff. They won't shut the fuck up. And I'm
And
gonna
they
say
sh-
this.
and
And
they
I'm gonna
sure
say
as hell
this.
don't have a lot of lines of dialogue.
This is an even worse problem, because this is the second game that came out how many years after the first game, and they decided to do nothing about this problem.
Yeah, go back to the episodes where you were incredulous that I didn't like Dragon's Dogma 1, and you'll see these same complaints I had about that game.
They have so few lines of dialogue for how much they talk, too.
They have tons of dialogue, but it's so hyper-specific that you have to like be in the exact spot to trigger the interesting dialogue, and the rest is just like the same canned response.
If I hear them mention that ladder one more time.
And someone will say, well, there's an option where you can just turn it off. And it's like, that's not, like, I don't want to turn their voices off entirely. I just don't want them to talk nearly as much as they
just
do.
Shouldn't.
There's also, you're forgetting about another really annoying part about the Dragon's Dogma pawns, Wyatt, which is that some people, you have the voice slider when you select them at the start, and you can modify the pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I found a ton of the voices of the pawns that I had were like the lowest pitch set to the lowest value.
Yes.
And it just sounds like it's the rest of the pitches sound okay. That one super low value on like the one male voice sounds so bad, and it sounds like they're just like
it sounds like he's choking
robotic.
on peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so bad.
Yes, my lord.
I kept hearing that, and yeah,
Any
that
items to
super
share?
rough. It does sound like that is what it sounds like.
Yeah, you're joking, but that's what it was.
It's about what it was.
I mean, it's just kind of like it's also in essence the problem with Dragon's Dogma 2, or at least the problem that I had. Some really cool stuff surrounded by a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And the pawns were like many things in the game a missed opportunity to improve over the first game, unfortunately.
All right. Let's move on and go to best first or no. Sorry, Alex, you gotta go.
Oh.
I was like, sorry, I skipped ahead in my head of where we were. We still got to do the rest of this one.
Bro, you skipped yourself.
I skipped myself, yeah.
He's a selfless.
No, I'm like tracking a list of what we're doing in what order. I looked at the wrong page.
Mine will be quick because mine's Brett, but once again, I'm hyper fixating on hating one character, and that's specifically your first best friend that you meet in the game, who's in the Manlet Gundam.
Alex, I do want to specify that you said mine is Brett, and not the game.
Oh,
how could you?
No, my. Oh, God.
I'll be sure to be more obnoxious this time. You know, the 1 year where I barely showed up for like 10 episodes.
That's what was obnoxious, Brett.
Oh God! No, my game that I picked was the one that Brett picked, which is Gundam Breaker 4, but specifically the character who's your best friend in the little Manlet Gundam.
I think it means
I want to kick
all
him.
super deformed, Alex. Okay.
So can I make a confession real quick? I saw that Alex W had put in my friends in Chain Together, and I was like, okay, that's the multiplayer friends, the multiplayer people that you play with. When you two put down Gundam Breaker 4, I thought you also meant your like multiplayer.
Oh no!
No, that was us. That was the three of us playing it.
I was like, are you all complaining about each other? What's going on?
That would be really funny, though. Actually,
Brett would be justified in complaining about Big Chungus.
Like that just dawned on me just now that you weren't talking about. I was like, oh wait.
Yeah, it would be justified because one of the mechs that I made just screen wiped everything every now and then with a gigantic white flash.
Flashbang to the screen with a giant nuke.
Oh, that was the atomic bomb shield.
Yeah, it was the atomic shield.
Yeah.
Shoots a nuke that literally just covers the screen in white. It's so obnoxious. It's really fun. All right, my award for this goes to the First Descendant. I think I almost forgot about this game. This game was going to be in game I want to forget about it. And I was like, I actually forgot about it. It just
so it's not eligible anymore.
It's not eligible anymore because I do forget about it constantly. But yeah, coming back, I've been getting way back into Warframe and playing Warframe, and then thinking about the small amount of the First Descendant that I played, where it is just like a worse version of everything from Warframe, basically.
Yeah,
it just frustrated me. And specifically the character designs, I think, are a huge, just weird. Warframe started doing a thing with proto frames, which are essentially more human-like Warframe skins, and they look very good, I think. But that's because they're still like molded with this crazy techno virus and whatnot. They still look very identifiable to the Warframe art style, even if they're in more humanoid aesthetics. the first Descendant is just crazy. They just go, hey, let's do some insane. We'll have this character in a leotard called Bunny that runs around constantly and makes childish jokes about being fast all the time, and I'm just like, this is just very annoying.
They sucked.
they're just annoying. It's like every single one of them is only a trope. It's almost to me like First Descendant's basically a gacha game, but it's a gacha game where they just decided that every character is one note, and that's the only thing they're ever allowed to be. Which means everything's just super one-dimensional.
Amir is a fantastic speedster compared to whatever that swill is.
Yeah, Amir's interesting because I thought he was going to be... He's one of the Warframe proto-frames. I thought he was going to be super annoying. I didn't like him at first, but then you learn about him, and I'm like, I understand now. I understand why this character is like this. And there's actual justifications for it, rather than it being just bad.
I had a work friend recommend the First Descendant to me, so I guess I'm glad I didn't take that one.
It's not good. All right. Let's talk about best first impression.
Okay, so my pick here is a game that we've only had a first impression for, but that I really enjoyed, Mecha Break. We did that for an episode. I don't think I put it in my most anticipated games later down this list because I'm mentioning it here. But it's probably one of my most anticipated games.
It was really fun.
I'm a little wary of it, but what we played in the open beta was really, really fun. I had a ton of fun with it, and they could have released it then, and I would have played it many, many more hours. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see what else they add. I'm hoping it's all going to be good. What they had that we played was a great base, and I really had a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Yeah,
I hope it's good. I'm very, very trepidatious towards it. I've heard very mixed things, so I don't know. They have another open beta going on right now. But
I'm really into whatever single player stuff that they will end up doing, because I think a lot of the mechanics for a lot of the suits were really cool, but I think I'd prefer to see that in a single player context than a multiplayer context.
All right, Brett.
Well, I was the person to point out, saying that we all between us, we're going to repeat metaphor, and the first person to do it is me again.
You also called me out specifically not too long ago. I'll just have you know.
But I think particularly because of how I feel about metaphor, I think it's important for me to have it here, because I think the first impression and beginning of the game is leagues above what I think of not so much the ending, but especially the midpoint of the game, which is where I personally start to have problems with. But I think just the fact that they gave you just a demo that you could just play like 4 or 5 hours in, and it's just that good before the game even came out was crazy. It did a lot to build up hype for the game, and that's just how the game starts. Is just all those demo events are just the beginning, and it's a really bombastic start compared to how a lot of this team's games sometimes start, and I don't really have a problem with how slow and kind of drip feedy with information Persona 3 and 4 are. But I know a lot of people get turned off by that, and they just want to get straight into the action of their 100+ hour game, and I definitely respect that. But this game proves that it is possible to do that, and I think they did it really well. The beginning of this game does a lot in a really short amount of time, and it made me really, really, really excited to see where they were gonna go with it next. Whether it actually went to those places, not really. But it was fun to think that it might while it lasted.
I also really agree with this one, because I think Atlas has in the past struggled with the opening of their games. I think even Persona 5, which I really, really like as a whole, I think that game's amazing. The opening section of Persona 5 is like a hard filter.
Yeah.
For people,
yeah, I don't like it very much.
It's so slow compared to like the first couple of minutes are great where you're like going through this, oh, we're the casino raiding and what's happening. That bit's fun, but then it goes to I'm gonna sit through text and tutorials at a school for like 2 hours. And then you get to combat again, but you can't actually do anything. You just have to hit the same button over and over while the tutorial kind of tutorializes you. And it's a little bit better in Royal, but it is, I think, a huge problem for Persona 5. And I think Metaphor was way, way better. It was much faster to actually get into the meat of the game and get going, which I really liked. Okay. Wyatt.
Yeah. So I picked Black Myth Wukong. Now I like this game. I don't think it made as much of an impression on me as it did for a lot of people. But man, that opening was sick.
Very cool.
It starts with that super slick, like, here's the main title and then the character, and then when you hit start, it just kind of like the menu goes away and the cutscene just kind of starts, kind of like what they do in Indiana Jones. And I always love seeing that. I'm such a sucker for those kind of transitions. But then you just see these like giant creatures and you're flying around on your cloud, and there's like this massive army. You're fighting this like boss, and there's like fog swirling up around you, and you get like a glimpse at all of the cool abilities that you get later on in the game and stuff. And it starts on a high note. It's a lot of fun to watch and play actually. And again, it just kind of gets you hyped up, even if like the afterwards, the game kind of slowly ramps up in insanity again. It's really fun to start with that and then kind of dip back down and work your way back up to it. But it's so much fun.
Yeah, really fun start. All right, Alex.
Alrighty. Oh god, best first impression. This was a struggle for best fun with friends one as well. But Bopple Battle, where we just god, I don't think I was the original person to find this on Steam, but
No, that was me. It's sending it to everyone. That's just a
and then
weird thing that I found for a couple bucks.
No one ever buys this game for themselves except for the first person to do so. You are always gifted it, and then it's a magical
It's true.
time.
It's like a disease.
It spreads naturally.
Oh, but Bopple Battle is absolutely chaotic and wonderful. And I need to check if they've done any more updates recently.
Yeah,
Because
super fun game.
Those new powers they added, I love just menacingly doing the time stop charge up in the corner.
Absolutely.
And then completely failing and just falling down.
I mean, it reminds me a lot of like the fun that people have with Smash Brothers,
Yeah.
which
Oh, for sure.
I totally agree
Yeah.
with. I love Smash Brothers, but the problem is Smash Brothers is expensive and hard to coordinate playing. Bopple Battle, simple, just download
It's
it
so
on
quick
Steam
and easy.
good.
Yeah.
Great
Plus
little game.
the online
Kind of reminds me of
the online for Bopple Battle isn't shit.
It's
So
rock
that helps
solid
too.
compared to Smash
Yeah.
Bros. Online.
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of like a not turn-based Worms too.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally.
Mm.
And also, it's also just so fun to have like everyone do a random loadout and see what you get for all. Oh, there's so many
I think
different.
that's
power
literally the
combinations that you
only
can
way
work
I've
with.
ever played it.
All right. So my best first impression pick was 1000 Times Resist. I think is how you're supposed to say it. Little indie
Probably.
gem where the concept is essentially that most of the people on Earth are dead. Humans were largely eradicated by an alien disease. One person was immune to this disease, and she cloned herself hundreds and hundreds of times to essentially create a like post-disease society. And everyone like fills different roles and like praises their mother and whatnot as the woman who was the initiator of all this. It's a fascinating game. I haven't finished it yet. It's one of those things where I started it and the first impression I had was so good, but I was also just like, I gotta wait. I gotta like sit on this until I'm in the mood
Yeah, you gotta step back.
to blaze through it, because I also know it's not very long. It's a very short game,
Yeah.
to my understanding.
And there's
But
multiple
it's
endings too, I'm
super
pretty
cool.
sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very, very fun game. I'd absolutely recommend checking it out if you're a fan of things. Like I always mention things like Danganronpa or other action, not actioning, but like detective-y Japan games that come out every now and
Yeah,
then.
basically.
that I always love, I have Somnium Files, like those types of games. This absolutely fits right
Detective
on
Pikachu.
Them. Sure.
That's right.
All right. I'm going to take us down after this one to the coolest mechanic, regardless of the rest of the game. Other section.
Yeah.
There we go.
Alex,
Whoops,
take
this
it
is
away.
me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was waiting to see if you
this
had it
one's-
down, and you really didn't.
I'm sorry. I was. All right. Anyway, this one isn't a bad game. I'm going to talk about movement. My pick was movement and kind of the combat in with it in Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. A game, not great. I think I liked it more than most people did, and I wouldn't rate it all that highly. But I did think that the different characters' unique movement styles and how it was both like a method of how you interact with combat and how you move around in the open world was a lot of fun. I felt like, despite everything about that game, the gameplay was pretty tight. It was the rest of the game that was not.
Yeah.
I also wonder how well
I-
that game would have done had it just been a different theme and not Suicide
I think
Squad, because the mechanics were okay.
The problem for me with the movement is that it was really cool once you kind of wrap your head around it, but it also felt weirdly like overcomplicated. Like there's like three
Fair
or
enough.
four different buttons that sometimes you have to hit in sequence to do certain like maneuvers.
And like different per character too.
Yeah,
true.
it was kind of funky.
I actually
but
want to
once
go back to that game just to see what the later characters they added are like.
But once you kind of wrap your brain around it, there's some pretty cool maneuvers that you can pull off, and it's also unique per character, which was nice to see as well. They all have their kind of feel, their own
Yeah.
feel.
I really
right.
well, never mind. This is a topic for another episode. Keep going.
We could have a lot more to say about Suicide Squad at some point. Okay, Brett.
Okay, if you want to hear more about the ins and outs of the D-counter from Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter for the PS2, you should watch the 2 episodes ago that we did. Because that's kind of where I get more in depth with it in the flibbity flabbity gibberish way that I speak about games. But basically, it's a permanent counter that when the number 100 happens, you die no matter what, and the game is over. And the only way that you can make it go back down, because it goes up while you're doing basically any action in the game, is to die on purpose and reset and go back to a previous save to try to do stuff better again that will make the D-counter go up less. And I'm oversimplifying it, so the 6 people worldwide that have played this game that are madly typing on their keyboards right now that I'm wrong, shut up. Nobody cares anyway.
I like hearing what Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarters D counter.
Well, guess what? There's more. But yeah, it's very cool to me to basically have a system that's like based on you like fucking up but good. Because it's like the game can come off as hard very easily, but once you realize that like you're like, yes, there's definitely punishment for dying because you have to go back, but you kind of think of it as, oh, thank God I get to go back and I get to do that section, but like good this time. Like the first run through a bunch of areas kind of feels more like a scouting mission almost. And then you purposefully die to a thing and then go back through with all the knowledge that you had.
Yeah, I kind of feel like
to do
that's
it
some
right
of the
this time.
appeal of some of the like Souls-like games. So I can see that extrapolated
Yeah.
out as a full mechanic would be interesting.
But yeah, it's cool. Really, just weird, obscure game that I know Capcom's talking about bringing back some of their old stuff, but I won't believe it until I see another Breath of Fire game announced. That's never gonna happen. So we'll see.
HDTD remake, hopefully. Okay,
Yeah,
what?
Really.
Yeah. So I feel like Ryan and I are becoming the 2 biggest Star Wars Outlaw defenders ever. Not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but the gang reputation system is really cool. um, Basically, there are these different, gang factions that you can do missions for, but also missions that you would think have nothing to do with them also directly affects your standing with these different uh, groups. And the higher standings you get, they give you rewards. They also give you access to other parts of their operation. So there's parts where, if you're seen, they'll just you know escort you out or shoot you on sight. But if you're a good enough reputation with them, you can just waltz right in and access other parts of an area that you weren't able to before. And a lot of the times, the missions you do with these factions kind of contradict each other, which can be really fun too. There's missions where like, oh, you got to do a mission for the Ashiga clan, but last minute the Crimson Dawn come in. It's like, hey, if you give us these supplies that you just picked up, we'll pay you double, but you'll get a lot less reputation for the Ashiga clan and stuff like that. It's just super cool, and it kind of goes back to what I think Ubisoft does really, really well, which is having these kind of large scale systems that then have really unique interactions with each other in the open world that can kind of create these really cool moments. And I think this is probably one of the best examples of that we've had in a long time uh, from them. And it's just such a cool system. It's so on theme for like the seedy underbelly of of the Star Wars world and everything. It was so cool. It was a lot of fun to mess around with and see what you can get away with.
Yeah, I had a really good time with it too. I think it's just one of the more interesting things Ubisoft has put into a game that I otherwise thought was generally pretty good, with some things I didn't like about it, but I think it was
Yeah.
just a really cool way to kind of tie everything together in Outlaws.
Yeah.
All right, Alex.
The combat in the combat mechanics in Dragon's Dogma 2. Say what you will about every other aspect of the game, and boy have I, and boy will I probably again. But that is some of the most fun sandboxy combat I have ever encountered. I love climbing on top of big enemies and stabbing them repeatedly or blowing them up with very
You gotta
physicsy
try
magic.
Eternal Strands, Alex. You would like Eternal Strands.
Eternal Strands.
Have you
It's on
played a
Game
lot of
Pass.
that, Ryan?
Yeah, I like it quite a lot. It gets much
I've
better
only
after
played
start.
the demo. Ugh.
Strands,
Yeah,
you
it
say
get-
Eternal Strands?
Eternal Strands like Game Pass. It gets into the like climby action Dragon's Dogma mounting system. Super
I was
fun.
looking at this a little bit more. I was really looking forward to this. How did that drop off my radar?
We'll save the talk for later because I'm for sure it's going to be a Game Pass game coming up.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Oh, it did release this year.
yeah, it just came out. It's much better. All right,
Darn.
moving on. My pick here was Shadows of Doubt. Shadows of Doubt is a game that I think did the rounds a little while ago. It's the detective thing where like a in-game AI system kind of generates a case file for you, and like a murder or something happens, and you have to kind of piece together everything that happens. It's sort of a very procedural generation focused game, and the fact that it's mostly coherent is really cool. It's not like a sort of like ChatGPT style system. It's a handcrafted like procedural thing, and the entire focus of the game is built around that. I think it's a really interesting approach to the whole detective thing. It doesn't always work, but I think when it does, the fantasy of being like a detective in Blade Runner is really cool. And the aesthetic is really fun. The amount of like mechanics, I love the way that it has like a case board that you mess with to pin and like put down things you think might be relevant, and you can like attach and hyperlink information to each other to kind of build your own case file. It's just really cool. The entire system set is very fun. Would it have been better if there were only a few like handcrafted cases? Probably. But the fact that it works the way it does, I think, is really interesting. And it's just a very fun, weird little game that is definitely worth checking out if you're interested in detective stuff.
Did you know you can steal and sell off things from the victim's apartment?
Yeah, and that's another thing to note. You don't have to play it like a detective game. You can kind of just be a jerk and steal things and make money and buy property. That's also part of the game. All right. Let's go back up to our best side character.
Ooh.
Top of the list, Alex.
Best side character.
Oops, sorry, I had to find my category. This one comes from, well, I don't want to spoil what I've picked later down the line, but one of my favorite games this year, which I will probably mention again. I kind of love to hate the chaplain in Space Marine 2 in the story mode. I don't know how many of you played through the story mode of that game. I'm a big Warhammer fan, so I did right away. And the chaplain is really a pain. Like, he shows up just to question everything you're doing in between all the story missions, and is like, hey, you're not turning into a bad guy, are you? When you're literally doing the right thing. And I don't know, I love to hate him. And for
Very
anybody
good.
who's played the first game, I think that there's more to love about that character.
All right, Brett.
Okay, it's time for the best side character that nobody likes except for me, apparently. She's from Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which is the new wacky souped up version of Shin Megami Tensei 5 that came out in 2024. Now, the thing with original SMT5 is that a lot of the side characters felt pretty flat and pretty and the story is not the best, and that kind of led it to be, not really remembered all that fondly.
Aside from the
But it's not like
gameplay, everyone
terrible.
loves the gameplay.
It's press turn forever will be absolutely goated. But it's not even that people really hated it. It's just that like a numbered SMT title is a pretty big thing to be a successor to. So when they announced that they were adding a whole entire new story path, everyone was like, "Oh, okay." And with basically the representative for the whole new story path, because you can choose to be boring and play the original, or be interesting and play the new stuff right at the beginning of the game, is by picking to hang out with Yoko Hiromine, who is this not even a transfer student. She's just like a student from another school who just like shows up in the apocalyptic scenario that you're in and just starts hanging out with you. And the best part about her is that the goody two shoes girl will be like, "Oh, I thought I had one more piece of gum left in my pack, but it looks like I'm out. That's so sad. I'm sorry, Yoko. I wish I could have given it to you." And Yoko's response will be like, "Yes, I appreciate that gesture, but every minute that passes, 2 million people are
Oh my
dying
god.
in Africa or whatever." And it's just like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And so just like choose the most random moments to bring up like absolutely insane. Like there's like she literally brings
Yo,
up like
yo.
are you going to ban all cars just because of a few car accidents? And it's like one of the things where you get to say like yes or no to. And so like what is a person supposed to react to this? But she's like doing all this like facetious shit, and she's definitely that kind of archetype of person that like thinks they know a lot about what's going on in society, and they're in like middle school or high school or something. And I say this because I used to know a lot of people like this, who have since grown out of it, and she does too. And once the a big story event happens, and she kind of doubles down on some of it and grows out of other parts of it and realizes that it's kind of a really weird way to think about everything. But basically, because all the other characters are so boring, she just says all this shit purely to force them to be interesting and think of things that they otherwise wouldn't, because they just wouldn't come up. And she was just awesome to have in the party as all the time. Yeah, and also another good thing about Vengeance 2 is that you can actually use the side characters in your party and not just the demons, which is pretty sick because she had a lot of
Purple.
cool abilities as well.
All right,
Oh yeah.
Wyatt.
Yeah, so I picked. So this is another repeat. I picked Antea from Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden.
And I'm gonna jump in with you here too, because I also picked that day. The finishers.
And what I think works so well about this character is that, well, first of all, you play as her at first before. I think I can say it because it's not really a spoiler.
It's
a
in the
setup
trailer for the
very-
game. Like,
She dies. So
Hey yo,
you,
she's dead wife,
she
not wife.
you play as her at the beginning of the game, and then she dies, and then you take over as Red. And what I really liked was that you got such a good sense of who she is as a character before she died. And as Ryan and I discussed when we talked about this in the last episode or two
yeah, I think it's the
episodes
last
ago,
episode.
um, because she's a spirit or she's a specter, there's a lot of conjecture over whether, if when you're talking to a spirit, is it the actual person you're talking to, or is it some sort of like amalgamation of emotion and memory and stuff like that. And what I think makes her so interesting is that it feels like you're talking to the same person throughout this entire game and confiding in, but you're never 100% sure where she's at or what her true intentions are, because specters are still kind of an unknown entity. And so it's like really fascinating to like to interact with her, but also be constantly on edge as to whether you're actually talking to her or not. And I found that endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, she's a really fascinating character, and I do think the whole Spectre aspect is so interesting about what Banishers does, and how it utilizes that part of its story. And I think Antea is really just a great foil to Red, in that she's kind of at the start sort of a mirror to whatever you're kind of throwing towards her. Of you can sort of talk through all these like different options that you know you'll have to deal with her eventually, because you know, oh, you've got to make a decision at some point. Like, she can't stay a Spectre forever, so you have to choose. Basically, do you want to try some dangerous ritual to revive her, or do you want to try and free her, to go to whatever the beyond is and whatnot? And it's fascinating going through those decisions and like learning about those two characters through that. So
And I also loved how during dialogue sequences you're picking dialogue options as Red, but there's also highlighted specifically, they divide dialogue between Red and also options that you can pick for Antea to ask questions as well, which I thought was fascinating, because you can definitely tell with those choices, like you can definitely tell the differences between the two characters and what their focus is in a conversation. And I think that again helps kind of flesh her out as a character more. And so it was really cool that she was also being included in these conversations by the player and not just interjecting at certain points, which was great.
all right, Alex.
Hey, here's my first repeat. We got once again for best side character, Shadow of the Erdtree, Egon. Igon. I love him screaming, "Curse you, Bale."
Great. That's really all you need to say.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to best character design. Brett. All right, and Alex, you're first. What am I saying? Brett's like,
Now,
I mean-
now, oh my
Now
God.
we're switching it up?
Look,
Look, Brett has a game from 2024 on here. I have a game from a few years ago, so whatever. But I was been playing this a lot recently. And I'm gonna say best character design goes to the character portraits in Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous,
they're really good.
and pretty much in all of the Owlcat games. They did another Pathfinder game before that one, which all of those character portraits are also in Wrath of the Righteous. So you can have fun with that.
The Righteous's like
And-
companion character portraits are phenomenal. Like,
Yeah,
all the
I mean,
companions
it's
so cool.
Yeah, it's great. I would, yeah, play that game. I don't know if you're a CRPG fan or just a Pathfinder fan. Play that game. It's good.
Right, Brett.
Character art good.
This is probably the only praise that Elden Ring is getting from me this year, and it's that the FromSoft, FromSoft, and basically everything that it does really manages to make its characters look, like they're definitely from a fantasy world for their fantasy games, and from a sci-fi world for their Armored Core games, obviously. But it doesn't really look like they're from anything else. They can only be from a FromSoft fantasy game. Like they just do armor in such a unique, ornate way, even if you can tell it's
Yeah.
inspiration.
And
And
Mesmer's
Shadow of the
design
Erdtree-
alone is so
Oh
so
yeah.
Yeah, so many of the bosses too, they get back to their like just weird, like uncomfortably alien roots that you'd expect to see in some like weird ass like PS2 jank that they made.
Yeah, we got Finger Mama.
But yes, and they're just like so like you wouldn't expect to see it in anything else. Certainly not anything else AAA. But even the things that are more expected, like the character customization that you can do to yourself with all the cool armor sets that some of these guys drop, and you just get to look like them, or they just have different suits of armor kind of themed after them. It's all very very pretty. They have a I mean, yeah, we've praised From Software's use of not necessarily the highest fidelity graphics, but like using exactly what they need to make the textures and models look better than they would otherwise. And Shadow of the Erdtree's armor in particular is really 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 pretty.
Yeah, I really liked all of the characters and stuff there too. Okay, Wyatt.
Yeah, so I went with Chaos specifically from Hades 2. I felt a little strange about putting an early access game on here, but you know what? It's a game that came out in 2024. You can buy it with your actual money, so I'm counting it. This character design is fantastic.
It's crazy cool.
They went so hard. I love because it's just one portrait, but I love that they're holding the skull of like their former self from the first game that also has a bit of like the spinal cord coming out of it and flowers. There's so many little details in their coat, like you can see faces and skulls everywhere. The wings, the hair, it's so cool looking, and I think it does really well this idea of like controlled chaos. Like there's a lot of
Totally.
things happening, there's a lot of color, but it all feels very organized and intentional. And I think that's something in character design that's really hard to pull off, but I think they absolutely nailed it.
This is just a
Here.
great iteration of a first design because it very visibly like is Chaos from Hades 1, but completely redesigned, but referencing the first, and it's so good.
Yeah. It's I mean the art in any Supergiant game, like they don't fuck around, all right?
Yeah.
They go hard every single time. And I think to me at least this is some of their best work. This is fantastic.
Okay. Alex.
Courtesy of Game Pass, we are going way back in the time of point and click games to Grim Fandango.
This is a
for my
good
pick for
pick.
best character
This is a
design.
really good pick,
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Had you not
love that
picked this, I
character
might
art
have.
so much.
Yeah, Grim
Oh my
Fandango's
God, no-
style is so interesting and so cool.
Oh, all the spirits, in their various skeletonized forms, has so much personality, not just in their clothing, but also hints at how they died as well. That's always fun stuff to do. Oh,
Very fun.
yeah, it's an enchanting game.
All right. My pick for this was Metaphor. Metaphor Refantasio. I think the character designs here are some of Atlas's best from anything. They're so incredibly clean. I think they did a great job at like nailing the specific elements they needed to without overcomplicating any of the designs, which I think is a really common sort of JRPG thing to fall into, is getting overcomplicated. But Metaphor's just got very like, it almost makes me feel like they're straight out of like a 90s anime or something, where they're just classically made in a way that just is very identifiable, and the silhouettes are great, and everything just looks really interesting. I just love all the designs that I've seen, and all the like armor designs for the different archetypes are super cool as well. So
Yeah, the archetypes are so sick.
I think they're all just great, as well as the humans, which you might think that means the people. It doesn't. It means the gigantic human monsters, which is super interesting. I just love everything about the designs in that game. Okay.
You mind if I shout out an extra one here? I forgot it.
Go for it.
It was my screen wasn't showing it. So this one isn't really something that's in a game, but this year I was watching the anime and reading the manga for Dungeon Meshi or Delicious in Dungeon, and found the artist who did the manga, Ryoko Kui. She has redone all of the character portraits for Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and her art style I
Wild.
love so much, and all of
Ooh.
those character portraits look really cool. I mean, all of her art looks great to me, but this is at least tied into a game that I have played.
That's super cool.
That's pretty cool.
All right. Moving on to best sound design. Alex.
Yeah, so I finished up Death Stranding uh, late last year, kind of in preparation for the second one coming out this year, and it was on my mind that that game does a good job of. I don't know if there's any specific things that stick out to me, but that game could easily be really boring. And I think some people find it really boring, but I find that there's enough detail in a lot of the sound design that complements the gameplay as well to keep your long walks through nothing interesting and immersive in that, like, the different things you step on all have different, like, clear textures to them, and it all sounds really immersive,
The
as well
mechanical
as
noises too are excellent.
yeah, mechanical noises, and um the music that will just like fade in when you happen to be passing by a beautiful scene or sometime in the story after something major has happened. My only complaint about the sound design in this game is the damn baby that cries out of the controller when things get stressful. And man, oh man, when things are stressful, I don't really need a crying baby in my literal
See, I
hands.
was jump scared by that because I was playing this on PC and I didn't know that it would do that on PC as well.
Oh man, I
So
didn't know
if
it
you have a
would.
DualSense plugged in, it will do
Oh
that through the controller
God.
too if you don't know about it. And you can turn
Oh.
that off because like I was like freaking out because I was like, "What? Where is this noise coming from?" I had like
I found too that
left it
like there was
on.
a couple times when I had the TV kind of low volume and the controller was not low volume.
Oh
Yeah, totally.
no.
And I went, "Oh shit, I forgot."
Okay,
Um
Brett.
Well, I think fucking 1999 or whatever this game came out is far enough from 2024 as you can get, but I don't care because I finally got to play the first Silent Hill game for my first time. And it's like it's just one of those things where like okay, there's like a million 4-hour video essays about it. Even people who have never played it before speak of it as if they have, as if it's this great thing, and that's because it is. And for a game made out of so few squares displayed at once, they sure do have a lot of really gross sounds happening. And that just means that the atmosphere is
make up
incredible.
for the lack of squares.
Exactly, yeah, and honestly, it's like I don't even know how it all fit how it all fit onto one damn PS1 CD. But yeah, there's just some really there's just iconically gross monster sounds, and you can hear them from an uncomfortable distance away in when you're walking around the town. And just I don't know, just the whole atmosphere of the game, um, and the weird shit that happens to your speakers and like the other world and stuff is just very very interesting. That is a Silent Hill game. You fight giant bugs in this one, and they're very gross, and they make gross giant bug sounds. And I do have to say also that the one okay, I don't actually tend to get like, oh my god, I'm shitting myself scared at horror games when I play them. It's usually just like a very deep sense of like dread, like, oh, I really don't want to go down there. I just want to run through it. I was playing this game, with my boyfriend, with the lights off in our living room, and we were like, okay, cool, we're gonna sit down and play some Silent Hill. Cool, because we went through two already, and we are like, why not do this one? Um, and there's a part where you go into the elementary school, and in the hallways of the elementary school, there's these like little, they're like kind of like glumpy kid-sized monsters, but they have like knives, and they'll just like run up to you and shank you, and run
Oh,
away, and run back and shank you and run
oh,
away, and they're
oh
like unsettling
God.
enough because they.
Average school child experience.
It's true, and I think I want to say it even got like that monster isn't in like the PAL version of the game or something because it was too easy to equate it to killing a child, which is okay, that's fair, I guess. But in certain parts of the elementary school, there are these little invisible like either invisible or like 1% opacity like ghosts, and they're like they got to be like football size, and they're just like little fellas, and I don't even know what their actual purpose is, but like I went to I like put the controller down for a second after getting into what I thought was a safe room, and I was like about to tell my boyfriend something, and one of the like ghost things was in there, and normally they don't do anything, but it just went like, and I like shot out of my seat. I was not prepared for some like it sounded like a like oh adorable like baby seal noise. Oh, it's so cute. I not in the elementary school. It's not. And just the sound alone, I was like so stupid, but it just jump scared me so bad because I wasn't expecting it and didn't think they could do anything. So
Great.
the fuck you. It's terrible.
All right, Wyatt.
This a lot of these picks were really difficult for me. This one was so easy. It couldn't have been anything else for me. Hellblade 2. My God.
Great
Listen,
choice.
there's a lot of to be said about this game. There's been a lot of discourse surrounding how long a game should be and how much gameplay a video game can actually have in it. The audio in this game incredible. They use so much like binaural audio, and so the positioning, but also the exact kind of like acoustics that you would get with someone being here or here is so well tuned, and there's just so many like little sound details that really kind of add to the environment. And what I loved was again they use the use of sirens, which are kind of like your inner thoughts, portrayed by three different people kind of talking all around you, and it's just as anxiety inducing as ever. But what I love about it here is because they are using more in the story, there's more characters, which was very bizarre to kind of experience at first. But what I love is the direction of a siren is like directly contrasted with a character or an object on screen, and so they try and use the location of these voices to try and it's so I don't even know how to describe it. They are trying to use visual and audio together to kind of insinuate a lot of things based on the direction of a siren's voice and also the placement of a character or an object on screen. I don't even know if what I'm saying makes sense right now, but it's just it's so subtle, but it's so well done, and it feels so like handcrafted and lovingly made. Like you can tell sound engineers probably spent 6 7 months on like 3 seconds of gameplay just to get the sound and the direction exactly right, because it feels so like specific. I've never heard anything quite like it before. It's so well done. It
Super
was, it
cool.
was beautiful.
All right, Alex.
Right. Uh, best sound design. I am gonna have to go with Gundam Breaker 4 and repeat myself yet again. I thought that the second I hear a beam saber ignite or like the gunshots or the laser rifles, it sounds exactly like I'm watching Gundam. It's phenomenal. I think it's
Because
absolutely spot on.
they just use the goofy sounds from the anime that they've been using since 1979, and that's amazing.
That's all they
It
need to
works.
do.
It gets
Did you
you.
say goof?
Yes.
Like I hear the new type noise and I goof. All right.
I don't know what the hell any of you are talking about right now.
Look, the second I
And you
hear the
never will.
whooshing, the second I hear the whooshing and like the little technical garble of gun bits flying out, I'm yours.
What is happening?
You have me.
Right. All right. I'll get us out of the Gundam insanity. My pick for this was Slay the Princess, largely for the same reasons as Wyatt gave for Hellblade. Slay the Princess is a really interesting one because it's a text adventure functionally, with like it's a visual novel, and the way that they handle the sound for it, generally the game is very quiet aside from some music for whatever scene you're in, and the character is speaking, and all the voice acting is done by just two people generally. You have the person playing the princess who does every variant of the princess, and she does a phenomenal job with all the different voices there. And then you have a narrator who's kind of narrating you through everything, and a voice in your head going through that always hit you with different stylings, where they can be the voice of good or bad things. And as you're going through it, it just gets really complicated as to what's going on. There's voice lines that are super conditional as to what you've done in the past that'll start showing up. But in particular, the sounds of squelching when they happen in this game, it's got some meaty squelches, and I think that's an
Meaty squelch.
achievement. It's a game that, like, look, it's got a relatively simple art style. The art is super evocative, but when the meaty squelches start happening, oh boy, that's when I
That
get
has to be-
unnerved.
That has to be a name of a band now.
Isn't that a
Squelches.
Smiling Friends
Squelches.
character? Meaty Squelches?
All right, let's move on to a very closely related award, Best Soundtrack.
Okay, so another duplicate mention for me, and this one I don't know if I'm gonna. Well, I'll just tell you what it is first. This is Helldivers 2.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if I'd really pick this in a way I've picked best soundtrack for, like, I don't know what I gave last year, probably Baldur's Gate 3. And that's a soundtrack I could listen to over and over again. This is not a soundtrack I'm going to listen to outside of playing the game, but I feel like the soundtrack really fits and immerses you in the world and the themes of the game.
And
You
it's awesome.
definitely feel that launch music in your chest.
Yeah. It really fits with everything it's going for, and there's times where literally the soundtrack is like diegetic in the world while we all wait for some stupidly slow American flag, or sorry, super Earth flag to raise out of the ground, and it plays the anthem that is entirely too long. I don't know. I just think it does a really great job of immersing you in that kind of world and the gameplay, and fits with what it's trying to go for.
Very good.
Yeah,
Brett?
even just to jump off that for a second while I can, the extraction music while you're running back to the ship is so
that
like
too.
every time that hits, like, yes, dude, oh my God, fucking feel it. It feels so, that is such a good song.
And the music, I think, also contributes to the best loading screen of 2024.
Yeah.
Maybe
For sure.
of all time.
We
Maybe
didn't
of
make
all
an award
time.
for it because there aren't any other competitors. It's just Helldivers.
There is one all the way down, and why it's the only one that did something in it, because I think he might have
Because
made it.
can anyone disagree?
No. No.
Oh my God. Okay, my pick for best soundtrack of 2024 is the soundtrack to Project Wingman Frontline 59. Project Wingman is not dead. They brought it back with a little DLC that has only, like, I say only as if it doesn't matter. There's like 5 missions or something like that. But they're
That's
all
a pretty normal
huge.
number for these types of DLCs, yeah.
So yeah, because the missions aren't like silly little things that you can beat in 3 minutes, but honestly, if they were, they would probably still be really good. They're like fully fledged or sometimes bigger, just like mop up like 200 enemies or something like that, or they have some kind of gimmick to it. And it's the same composer as the base game, Jose Pavli, who did an amazing job in that game, and I think has just honed his skills even more for the DLC, and they've just gotten even better. There's a mission where you have to there's just simply no way you can fly over these mountains to get to the enemy rear guard to take out all the commanders at once
Simply
and
no
just
way, Brett.
completely
Oh,
destroy
but
the
I
war.
assure
You simply have to fly through this tiny tunnel and go through the entire highway underground as a supersonic fighter plane while awesome like this like this is like really like sick motivational like techno
I'm just
track
imagining
is
like
playing in the
Free
background.
Bird playing.
Do that
And
stuff,
I'm
Tom
gonna
Cruise.
that as well. Like off topic for 30 seconds is there's a Halo Skull equivalent you can activate that just makes everything fly like twice as fast. And there's a video of somebody going max speed in the fastest plane with that skull on, going
my
through it without
God.
crashing, and it is just insane, dude. It is so like nerve-wracking to watch. But yeah, the music makes the tension for playing through that even better. And yeah, I hope that team does more. I really hope that DLC isn't the end of it.
Right. Okay, Wyatt.
Yeah, so my pick goes to Arco. Has anyone here played Arco?
I
Never
want
even heard
to.
of it.
Haven't played it, but
Arco is a cool game. But this soundtrack is fucking rad. So if you're in the overworld, right? Because it's kind of like a it's like a top-down RPG. The combat's very funky, but there is kind of like an overworld and then a separate screen for combat, right? If you're in the overworld, it's these really beautiful, calm, like atmospheric guitar tracks. There's other instruments in there too, but it's really led by this guitar. And like I said, it's very atmospheric. I feel like it really builds the setting really well, and it's very peaceful. When the combat kicks in, the electric guitar kicks in, and it is
Cool.
hell
sick.
yeah.
Like imagine the it's actually very similar to like a Supergiant soundtrack. So like there's a lot of really nice, beautiful tracks, and then combat hits and the guitar ramps up. But you get this cool like there's a crazy like kind of rock guitar that comes in with a lot of overdrive, but then you also have the acoustic guitar that was playing before at the same time, and it just it sounds so cool. Um when I played this game, I really wanted to play more of this game. But when I played it, the second I walked away from it, I started up the soundtrack on my phone when I was doing other things. It was just that good. Even if you don't play the game, like the scores on Spotify or whatever music streaming thing you use, and it's so good, fantastic.
All right. Alex.
All right, first time this is showing up for me on the list. Best soundtrack: Destiny 2: The Final Shape, specifically the yearly expansion. It is the culmination to what they've said is 10 years worth of story. Boy, howdy, do you feel that in the music?
Especially
For that.
Salvation's Edge.
Oh, the raid was
Phenomenal
phenomenal for its music.
Maybe the
yeah.
best stuff in Destiny soundtrack. And Destiny has a very good soundtrack. I think that's a pretty...
Oh
It
yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Like previously, my favorite music in Destiny was during Forsaken with all that. Blew it out of the water completely.
Especially because Final Shape gets weird sometimes. Like, it's not always using the same tricks that soundtracks normally use, which is great. All right. My pick for this, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Look, I tried really hard to not duplicate Rebirth here. I tried really hard, but it's the answer. I'm sorry.
How could you not? It had to one of us had.
This is like Nobuo Uematsu's sort of like final. I think he said like this trilogy of Final Fantasy VII is really his last set of game works before he retires fully, and
Yeah, which is huge.
What a way to go out.
yeah, which is huge. Like, man's a legend. Every single song
With an
he's composed is
absolute
great.
bang.
And the Rebirth soundtrack is just, it's a set of, the original stuff is great. The remixes of songs from the original Final Fantasy VII are even better. And it's one of those things now where like, my like bar for a soundtrack is if when I hear that soundtrack, if I'm immediately feeling the emotion that I felt when that song came on in the game, it's a phenomenal soundtrack. And that's every song for Rebirth. Where like you can just play any one of them and I'll probably be able to immediately like get snapped back to wherever it was in the game that played. Especially like a lot of this game focuses on Aerith. She's a big, if you know anything about the original Final Fantasy VII, this is very much where she's a very important character.
Can't imagine
And
why.
everything involving her theme is handled super well. But it's also just like the individual character themes move in and out of the main soundtrack perfectly when you're talking with them. There's even a whole like weird opera in the middle of the game, which is great. I think just overall one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a game. Period. Very good. All
I
right.
feel like the original Final Fantasy VII has such a good soundtrack that like hard to beat that, let alone
And yet,
do it again. Yeah.
Somehow
they
we're
do.
here. Somehow we're here.
And yet we're here. All right. Let's go to best controls. Our next main award here.
I feel weird duplicating this, but gonna mention again Helldivers 2.
She's a really good call out for this one,
Yeah.
I think.
For sure.
And I think that some of that was first off, I think the game's really responsive and really fun. Sort of, I don't know how to describe the physics on your body, but like it, the controlling the player isn't always instantaneous, and it feels like there's some weight behind what you're doing.
It's weighty,
And I
but
think
not
it's
sluggish.
also, yeah, I think that
Playing
something
DDR.
something I
Yes,
particularly
yes.
wanted to mention here was the fact that like the way you use your abilities isn't just like go in a menu, press a button, but that you have to type in, up, down, left, right. Okay, that gets me the gun, the big turret. And I found that to be really fun and immersive. And at the same point, I can say, fuck those new enemies that then have their like confusion ray or whatever that then changes those inputs constantly.
Oh,
It's the worst.
So the ones you've spent the time learning, knowing because you've been using them so much, it's now as you're typing it in changing while you're getting attacked by stuff.
Rule.
So
mean.
yeah.
You hate to see it.
Right,
They've
Brett?
been smoothened your brain.
Well, when Armored Core 6 came out, I was like, man, this might just be the best feeling way to control a mech. And it turns out that they actually did it a couple games ago, in my opinion, at least. I finally got to sit down and play Armored Core 4 and 4 Answer this past year. And not only are they really good, but I think they best. They're I don't know. In terms of the game where you're not playing as the mech, but you're playing as the guy piloting the mech, it definitely still feels like there's some purposeful clunk in there, because they're trying to distance you from being able to control everything perfectly at the press of a button. It happens instantly, all that stuff.
You're not a
But
new
there's no,
type.
we're past tank controls. We're past like just not having enough fucking buttons on the controller, I guess, is what sometimes it feels like. The one thing that Armored Core 6 does have over the PS360 games is that yes, each weapon is a different button on the controller, and you can fire them all at the same time if you wanted to. But I counter that by saying that the fact that you can like your boost is mapped to the trigger, which on both the 360 and PS3 controllers are pressure sensitive. So your boost is pressure sensitive, and if you push it in a little bit and then pull your finger off and then push it in a lot and then pull your finger off and then push it in a little bit and like repeat that pattern in the perfect way, you can chain boost and just like do stupid tech that they somehow did on purpose because like it's just built into the game and they're like, yeah, this is a very hard thing to do, so don't
Super
bother
fun.
trying it. But it's just sick that there's stuff like that built in. This isn't necessarily part of the controls, but just the fact that you can move at like tens of thousands of kilometers an hour, just like at your like base speed, you could just make a frame that is so quick that it just goes that fast. And it takes one hit and dies, but the controls are intuitive enough that you can actually, you know, rein that beast in and do things with it. It's pretty fun. It allows for a much more satisfyingly high skill ceiling than really any of the other games in the series do, in my opinion.
Very cool. All right, Wyatt.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown needs a little bit more love from
Yeah.
everyone. I think this game got.
Great
I
game.
feel so sad about what happened to this game because no one played
Mm.
it, and it's so excellent, and the control is just like butter. Like it's so snappy and slick and responsive. It like I've explained this before, but it feels like playing a Smash Brothers character in a single player like platform Metroidvania. Like it just feels so good, and like they're adding all these new moves and everything to it, but it never feels like it's too much and it never feels like it's too little. It's just right, and it never it always everything felt right. Like jump arcs felt exactly as they should. The level design is also a great example of like all the jump arcs felt just right. The way that you combine your abilities together was always so satisfying, and it just like you could tell this is one of those situations where they just plopped the character controller down in a dev room for God 7 8 months just to like get the movement down just right. It just feels so good. And it's like one of the secret sauces of what makes this game so great.
Absolutely. Great job with the parkour on it too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, Alex.
Alrighty. Oh, best controls. Sifu. It's got to be for me. Another game courtesy of Game Pass, which is how I play honestly most of the how I'm exposed to most of the games throughout the year. But oh boy, I'm so glad I picked Sifu as a Game Pass game. This has some of the tightest and most impactful hand-to-hand combat I've felt. It
It's
is.
so buttery smooth.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. Chaining combos, pulling off these really cool moves that you're able to unlock throughout. Spending points for extra. Oh my. Oh, it's so good.
It's also one of those
You
games where
feel
you
like you know
almost
kung
always
fu.
know like exactly what you did when you mess up, and you just go like,
Yeah.
ah, I could have done it better, and
You
that's
can
what makes
never
it so
ga-
replayable.
You can never blame the game for screwing up in this.
Yeah, it's great. Okay. My pick for this was Astrobot. Astrobot is not my game of the year. Had I not picked the other thing for game of the year, it would have been. I love Astrobot. But I think in particular the thing about that game that is so good to me and is what makes it for me one of my like top 2 games of the year is the way that Astrobot controls and the way that it uses the DualSense controller is so impressive, and such a cool statement on how these controls should be used by like. I wish every PlayStation dev was doing stuff like this with their controller things and actually using this tech because I think it's so cool, and just so much fun to play with. And like even the little bits where you're controlling the arms of a thing, putting a CPU into the PS5 shaped ship, and so you have like the weird arms you've got to move around, and they're like clunky and weighty, and you can feel it in the controller while you're doing that. Is super cool. And yeah, just everything is feedback. Everything is handled super well. The actual third-person controls are super simple, but deep enough that they allow you to do a ton of stuff, even though they functionally use like only 3-ish buttons, beyond your camera movement and movement. So yeah, I think it's absolutely a great example of how to make a third-person platformer because it's so much fun.
Not to
All right.
distract too much, but some of that like controller stuff is something I'm kind of hoping we see out of Death Stranding 2 in terms of their funky
Mm.
immersion and the fact that I believe they're still PlayStation exclusive. Like, you know, I don't know. Do
Yeah,
it.
we'll see.
Do it, Kojima. You like to do weird stuff with the controller. Do it again.
Do it. You know you won't.
All right. Let's move on to best ensemble / main cast. Alex.
So I'm pulling from games we played during Game Pass this year, and also this is not the first time I've played it, but the first time I've played it past much into the beginning. I'm gonna pick Dragon Age Inquisition.
Mm.
Great, and in fact, I think it's probably my favorite part of the game is the companions and some of their stories. Um, I think we've gone into a lot of detail on it in our Dragon Age Inquisition episode, so I don't need to here. But
Yeah. Great
um,
cast.
some of those games are consistently really good about.
Inquisition in particular really got me to like characters that I didn't like at the start, and I think that's always a really
Yeah.
impressive achievement for a game.
I agree with you.
Okay, Brett.
All right. It's mouthwashing time yet again. And that means that you get to sit in your tight, cramped little spaceship with some normal people and some of the worst people and most disgustingly foul characters that have been written in recent memory. Um, and that just makes it awesome. It's one thing to have your game party be a gaggle of friends who learn to really love each other by the end, and maybe they don't start off the best, but by the end they it feels like you're chilling out with a little family, even though they're not real. And mouthwashing, the assholes range from a little annoying to petty crime and murder and worse. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it's just so dour and bleak, and it's, yes, partially because of the situation and universe, but so much of it is because of the cast and their reaction to it all. And some of the more innocent characters either not really caring or understanding, or just kind of pleading like, "Oh my God, what's going on? How are we going to get out of this?" And it's just all written so consistently and so well, um, that it's honestly one of the big selling points of the game for me, is that the characters are just so good, and that is definitely why you see people making. I mentioned this last time. The It's Thursday, sparkle on, be yourself, gifs of all of them, is because yes, of course, the axe murderer in space would pose like that. I definitely believe it. But only those kinds of characters get those kinds of gifts for a reason, and it's because they're well written and really terrible. But yeah, I want desperately. I will keep dropping reasons for other people here to play this game, because I'm
I'll
gonna
have you
do
know,
episode
Brett, after
5
the
the
last
same day.
episode, it was on sale and I did buy it.
Dude,
It's
it's
sitting
so
there
I
waiting.
good.
missed it.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
All right. Wyatt.
Yeah. Much like how Neva was really difficult to not repeat. Dungeons of Hinterberg was also a really difficult one where I had to not keep myself from repeating constantly. But I loved all of these characters in Dungeons of Hinterberg. They're fantastic, and what I love so much is there's a lot of conversations with them in between your treks out to various dungeons and stuff. And what I loved is that they all represent a different perspective on the this tourism industry, this unique kind of tourism industry that they have in the town of Hinterberg. They all come from different experiences, and they all kind of have their different takes on it. And what I loved was how earnest everyone was when they were talking about it. They all had their own unique way of speaking, and it was there was something where they were so affable and likable, even if you didn't always agree with their methods or their takes on certain things. You always wanted to know what they were. And they were just, it was like, there were times when I was more excited to talk to them than I was to do actual dungeons and stuff, just because it's like sitting down with if you've ever had this experience before, it's like sitting down with someone that you kind of just met, and you know them a little bit, but you really get into like certain topics because you're just interested to see how you guys differ on certain things. And it was just
Yeah.
it was like a delight to just sit down and talk with Jay or someone for an extended period of time. And the fact that they're conversations, and they have their own little mini arcs progress as the story progresses was really interesting as well. I loved every single one of them.
Right. All right, Alex.
Oh boy, who's ready for a kooky cast of characters? The Ace Attorney trilogy.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
pick.
they're oh boy. Whether it's the Phoenix Ray side of things or even Edgeworks Edgeworth's
Edgeworks.
edgy boy. Him and his bumbling detective gumshoe sidekick. Yeah. Oh my god! There's so much personality to everyone, and then even in like the not necessarily. Yeah, I'd consider all the different characters in the case as side characters too, bit parts. I very big fan of basing an entire character off of a pun because I've
Yeah,
done it before.
it's great.
Yeah.
It's also Ace Attorney handles it in a way that is better than I think most other games who do similar things, because they actually just run with it to its logical conclusion, even if it's
Yeah.
still really silly. And they're always going to commit to the bit, and it's great. All right. So my pick for this was Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Very real chance if I had already finished Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, it might have been up for my Game of the Year. It might be up for my Game of the Year this year when I finish it. It's really, really good. I haven't finished it yet. I'm not super far into it, so I didn't feel justified in putting it in that spot. But I do think the main cast of Infinite Wealth is so good. And the thing that all the Like a Dragon and Yakuza games are good at doing is introducing you to characters that at first seem a little simple or that you maybe don't like at the first appearance, but then you get really into like what makes them tick later in the game, and they become far more interesting. And it's just something that Like a Dragon's really, really good at doing, especially in Infinite Wealth. There's a ton of characters that all the new cast members are really interesting characters of their own right. And they also do really interesting things with our now side slash deuteragonist, I guess, if he's counted as a protagonist, Kiryu being a side character functionally, and what that means for his arc is really fascinating, and they just handle it in a really interesting way. So I'm super excited to finish it, and I'm also super excited to play Pirate Yakuza eventually and see what the hell they're doing with Majima, because I'm sure that's going to be fun.
Ryan, you do realize now that you haven't finished it and you're going to be finishing it this year, it's going to be going up against Pirate Yakuza.
Well, yeah, but it's also, I don't think Pirate Yakuza is in, as much as I am excited for that game, it's not going to win my Game of the Year because Monster Hunter Wilds is this year. So the baseline is higher this time around, as much as I like Yakuza and Like a Dragon.
And Alex, you're just as excited for Monster Hunter as Ryan is, so that's really cool to see.
Like, I'll drag you in with me, Wyatt. you liked it last
there's
time.
There's gonna be no dragging. I will come.
Oh, he's going willingly.
Wyatt had fun.
I will break all of my fingernails trying to resist.
All right, let's move into best antagonist. Alex.
So I tried to pick up this game again this year, unsuccessfully. May give it another try someday. So best antagonist for me is the controls, the UI, and the learning curve to Dwarf Fortress.
Legendary.
This time I did try with the new fancy UI. It was easy. Well, was it easier? It looked a lot prettier. I assume that had I gotten over that hump, it would have been easier to understand.
The easiest way to learn the controls and UI of Dwarf Fortress is to play it on the Steam Deck. Because there's a really, really good set of community controls that like bind everything to radial menus and make it so much easier to play.
That I was not expecting.
It's legitimately, it's crazy that it works that well. But it legitimately is a great Steam Deck game.
Mark that game down so that this could be easier on a controller.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which makes no sense. Absolutely zero sense.
Wild. That's wild.
I think I could have easily probably queued up a YouTube video to explain it all to me. But at that time, I was like, I don't want to research to play a game. I'm going to go play something else.
Shouldn't have picked Dwarf Fortress. That game is research.
Exactly.
What is it? Dwarf Fortress is the kind of game that if you're playing it at work, your boss will like go over and look at your screen and go, "Damn, He's really hard at work at Excel.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
No, that's
Oh
Eve
my God.
Online.
Brett.
Okay. Prepare, please, for the non-existent apology for Wyatt and I going on a tangent for the next 30 minutes
And
about
you know what?
the
I'm gonna let
best.
you've played more of this than I have, so I'm gonna let you take the lead. But anything Brett is about to say, I also echo. Brett, take it away.
Dude, I don't know how far in you are to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, but
I'm still in Cyan.
okay. At a certain part in the story, you are revealed who the true villain that you're going to be facing for the rest of the adventure is. And uh, in a insane twist of fate that I just was not expecting. Again, another surprise from the Indiana Jones game, like a big AAA thing. The main villain is just like the critique of like alpha Chad culture,
Oh
like
my god.
well researched and incredibly performed critique of alpha Chad culture.
Oh my
It's
That's wild.
insane. I
It's
cannot
so cool.
believe how the timing of this game coming out is incredible because so many of these things are so applicable to the wonderful fellow human beings that you'll find out in public today due to current events. But
I regret
there,
every day that I haven't played this game.
like, there's, thankfully it's been long enough where I can't necessarily like spoil it just because of I don't remember the specifics of exactly what he said, but there's like a part where uh he lands at his big zeppelin and next to the pyramids and the other Nazi guy, because of course he's a Nazi, worth pointing out.
Sniveling bootlicker.
Yeah, the Nazi commander he left in charge of the excavation of the pyramids while he was gone. I don't even think we said the bastard's name. Voss. His name is Voss. I'm sorry, I got too excited to talk about him. Yeah, Voss is talking to the guy he left behind to do the excavation while he was gone, and the guy's like, we're don't have enough manpower for this, and your timetables are absurd. And what are we even doing this for? I don't even like blah, 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 blah. And Voss is just like, you would dare you're questioning what you're doing this for. You dare question something that the Fuhrer said, and the guy's like, "Ah, blah, blah, blah." And he like they're like walking over to a car, and it's like this is like a full like classic like World War II like Jeep style vehicle where it has like driver's seat, passenger seat, and 3 passenger seats in the back. And it's World War II in the middle of the desert, so nobody cares about sitting on whatever part of the car that you feel like. People do it. There's a million pictures of soldiers just sitting on the trunks and shit at top speed. It doesn't matter. Um, and Voss just goes and he sits in the passenger seat, and the general guy goes to open the door and sit in with him, and Voss holds his hand up and goes, "No, I'm sorry, the car's full. Please pick your own." And the guy's like, and just walks away. And after, like, that could have been the end of the scene of the like haha funny Indiana Jones, like that's the Indiana Jones level humor that you'd expect, right? The camera comes in close, and Voss leans over to the driver and he says something along the lines of, "There's nothing easier to manipulate than like I forget exactly what words he uses, but there's nothing easier to manipulate than like an
Insecure
angered
man.
beta male or something. And it's an insecure
Insecure
man,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's just like,
Oh
oh
my
my
God.
god, this is what we're going to be doing, huh? And like that scene
Shit.
that they show in trailers of Voss like jumping up and down doing like a monkey dance or whatever is literally because he's talking to this guy who's just even more furious. He's just like, the people are dying out there now. Like, this investigation has gone on for way too long, and we could be doing way more important things. You're not making any sense. You're keeping information from me. Like, I should be in charge of here. Blah 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 blah. And Voss is just like, oh, what's that? Did anybody hear that noise? Oh,
ooh, ooh, he starts doing like literally like screaming monkey noise in this guy's face and jumping up and down and doing a fucking monkey dance. And there's no like haha funny music. It's played completely fucking straight. But I'm just sitting here like crying, laughing that this is even happening and it's real. And the best part, after all this guy like just completely taking the piss out of this lower ranking officer, the next time that officer appears, he's 100% on Voss's side. Like he just totally, absolutely has been mansplained, manipulated into just being his underling, and that's just beautiful. And they do even more with it later on in the game. But what an perfect villain for the game, perfect villain for the time in human history that we're at right now. And even just to look up a compilation of the cutscenes as like a movie or something, if you're not planning on playing the game, it's Voss is just incredible. He's so well written and well performed.
Yeah, and it's also it's a great introduction, not even introduction, just a great addition to the cast of absolutely batshit insane villains that Machine Games makes for all their games. Frau Engel from the Wolfenstein
yeah.
games is a mixture of hilarious, terrifying, and deeply uncomfortable all at the same time. They're so good at making these like villains that are both amazing but also like take a few steps back. I don't want
A
wants to be anywhere
little bit
near
over
me.
there.
Oh, and this is just another great example of that. Yeah, basically just echo everything that Brett just said.
All right. Okay, Alex.
We seem to be on a roll here with these kinds of villains. I am all for, I can appreciate your like villain, your redeeming villains, your antagonist redemption stories and things like that. I love me some irredeemable bastards. And that is exactly what I got in Warframe too with oh, I can't say too much, but I'll absolutely say his name for risk of spoiling things. Ballas is
What a
someone
villain
you
that I love to
just
hate.
want to kill over and over again, and you only get to do it once.
What a great villain. It's such a good villain. Yeah, Ballas really represents, I think, the best parts of Warframe's story. It's so fun. All right, I'll move on to I went a hard other direction with this one and picked the Creeper from Creeper World 4. And for those who are going, what's Creeper World 4? That sounds
Aw,
very
man.
silly. Creeper World
Sounds like
is
a Minecraft adventure mod.
Creeper World is a series of goofy little
does.
tower defense games made by one person, where the enemy is a liquid, and most of them are 2D. Creeper World 4 is 3D, and it's just really interesting to have to like think about playing a tower defense game where instead of fighting like the dudes running along a pathway or something, you're fighting liquid, and you have to like come up with ways to combat liquid, and just like try to figure out what methods you need to control the spread of this creeper. And it's really interesting. It's a very tactically deep tower defense, while also just having a type of enemy that I think nothing else has ever really done. And just tons of like cool levels that are all designed, handcrafted to like take advantage of the way that the creeper moves and whatnot. It's all very specific. It has a really specific flow to it, so it's very, very fun just like going through and seeing how all of this works. Especially in levels where they'll have like a gigantic wave that is slowly moving towards you, and you have to like get your defenses in place before it gets to you.
Oh boy.
Or else you'll just be run over by a massive thing of liquid. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's a really, really fun and unique take on a tower defense, especially because you'll have like turrets that target the deepest parts and turrets that target the closest and whatnot. So you've got to like manage what parts of this 3D volume you're getting rid of, essentially. And yeah, it's super interesting. Very fun mechanic for a tower defense.
Cool.
All right. Game you most want to forget. think this is a really fun one every year. Alex.
This is not a 2024 game, but a game I did play last year. I'm picking Gundam Battle Operation 2. And I don't want to
Oh.
forget this game, mostly because I want to like it so much. And
There's a lot
I
in the
wouldn't
way.
there's a lot in the way, exactly. There are moments I really have a lot of fun with this game. I have some real critiques of some of the gameplay and some of the stuff surrounding the gameplay. My biggest issue with this game, though, is that I cannot seem to get in a goddamn
Yeah.
match.
I gotta echo this too, because like I really enjoyed playing this on PlayStation. You cannot play it on PC. It just doesn't work most of the
No.
time.
Oh,
It's
terrible.
really
Should I-
unfortunate
should I-
because it's a really
Should
cool
I go
game.
over and play on PlayStation? Is that the
Is this a
solution?
more recent Gundam Breaker game, or is this like an
Battle
older...
Operation.
No, it's
a different series.
yeah.
Did I
This
say
is a
something bad?
more.
Sorry, I'm getting all my fucking Gundam games confused.
No, you're good, and they both begin with B, so it's not. It's not unforgivable. Breaker is like the actiony one that's like lighter hearted and
Right,
just
right,
like
okay.
mushing kits together.
Is this like a
Battle Operation is like an
tactical
objective
shooter or something?
Yeah, it's
my
like
God.
really slow
like
and
Mech
clunky
Warrior,
because it's
but for Gundam.
Yeah. But it has like an absurd amount of mobile suits in it, like every single one that you could possibly imagine.
Literally,
and then,
every
like, the
variant
next
in every
one.
single one.
so many more than there are kits that exist.
It's but the netcode put me in a special little box because I'm too far away from my router to have a wired connection, so it literally won't.
I have a wired connection and it
connect me
doesn't
to
work.
anything.
Oh,
It's
Like,
awesome.
It's terrible.
that's nuts.
It's horrible.
Sometimes I'll try to pop in and give it another match, and I just sit there for like 15 minutes, and then it'll go,
Yep.
matchmaking failed.
You know what? It's funny you
Oh.
say
And I
that.
go,
I was
oh,
feeling that
okay.
recently, and I know what'll happen, but I might just do it anyway, just to feel something.
Well, if
And
you
this is
go
a
and play it, let me
multiplayer-only
know, and I
game,
will.
right?
I'll try to get in a match with you, and we can both sit there and go,
Yeah.
oh, matchmaking failed.
Wow.
I feel like it's a game I should have a Gundam kit in front of me while I'm playing, and I just build it, and I build it, and I build it
Yeah.
while
Now,
I'm
is
waiting to
this
get in
a-
for a match, and I'll get like 2 to 3 hours of building in, and then I'll get in a match.
The ping is so
No.
high you can finish the torso in between frames.
Is this a situation where it's a multiplayer only game? So if you
Yeah.
can't get
Yes.
into the game,
Well,
the whole thing is
yes.
Oh, no.
There is a single player version called Code Fairy, but that's a whole separate situation.
That game scares me too much to buy it. It's on sale all the time, and then
I
I look
always
at
get
it. I'm like,
Scares me.
That's awesome.
All right, let's move on to Brett.
Well, keeping in the theme of mecha games that were borderline putting me in the hospital is how I'll put it. I had about my last straw with Armored Core 6 PvP.
Fun while it lasted.
And I just it was fun while it lasted, and then I feel like this is just kind of a microcosm of a larger part of the gaming industry. But if you just like make ranked the implied only way to play something, it just sucks. It sucks all the fun out of it. It turns everybody into a sweat, and I got to the top of A. I couldn't get to S, which is the highest of the ranks. I couldn't break through that like insane like 25 win streak that I needed to get to S
That's
on
crazy.
Xbox.
God.
Sorry, I wasn't going to switch and use the dumb overpowered builds where you don't have to try. And honestly, even when I did, because I was so angry, I just threw together a copy of this one guy that kept beating me all the time. I didn't have enough practice with it, so I still sucked. And boy, was that embarrassing. But it literally made me so angry that I was just like, it is unhealthy for me to keep playing this anymore. So I will not. and that was one of the main reasons that I stopped paying for Xbox Live, is that if I do not pay for it anymore, I physically cannot play this anymore. But it's not fun. It's a horribly unbalanced and terrible time, and I really hope that the next installment is not like that anymore. But Jesus Christ, it was so
Hey,
much more
single
fun when it was
player,
just
super fun.
Single player is great. Multiplayer, yeah, good point to specifically make it multiplayer.
Yeah.
But I don't know. No more.
All right. Speaking of no more, Wyatt.
Yeah. I want no more of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and neither does anyone else.
Mm.
um, so okay. I don't this is not like the worst game I've ever played. I do think there are redeeming qualities. In fact, there's a it has another award in our community awards that's a positive award that is worth pointing out if we get to it tonight. But overall, the reason that it's in game I most want to forget is less so the game itself. It's more I hate everything that this represents.
Yeah.
I
No,
hate
I'm with you on that.
it's the reason I didn't play it for the longest time, and the only reason I did is because it was free on PlayStation Plus. I did not spend any money on this game directly because I would never forgive myself.
Look, I spent
Um,
$25 to play Suicide Squad at Alex's recommendation, and I still feel
Ugh.
bad
Alex,
about it.
what the
Did I
fuck?
recommend that?
Ugh.
Yes, you did.
He doesn't
Okay.
even remember
Well, it
doing
wasn't me.
What is he still doing here? Get him out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Did I
do
recommend that?
Look, I will say that I like this game, I think, more than most people do. I have enjoyed playing it a bit. It's just not anything anyone would
I will
ask
say, I think
for.
the reason I didn't like it very much is I have like 600 hours in Destiny and then like 1,000 in Warframe. And so I've played the direct competitors of this game so
Yeah.
so much that it just really doesn't stand up to
What
them.
what really gets me, and like it's kind of why I like having a game you want to forget and not just worst game of the year,
Yeah.
is because again I want to specify this is live service slop of the highest order from a studio that made like super consistent high quality single player action games that people really liked and really honored a character that is very important to a lot of people
It sold tremendously well.
and sold very well. And I don't think there's a single person on earth other than some absolutely insane idiotic WB executives that would have told you, "Hey, if Rocksteady came out with another Batman game, it would sell poorly." There isn't a single person on the planet who would assume otherwise.
I have to
But this
imagine.
happened.
I have to imagine too that there's some WB exec out there that has something for Suicide Squad because it keeps coming up in the comic book world, in the gaming world, in the movie
And here's the
world.
funny thing:
Who's a fan?
the development of this game actually has a longer history than you might expect. It didn't even start with Rocksteady as the sole developer. It was bounced around from studio to studio within WB for a good couple of years before it finally landed in Rocksteady's lap because I guess they had nothing better to do. And then they just kind of finished up whatever it was and just kicked it out the door. Um, and it now the future of the studio is kind of called into question, especially because this took so long to make. um and it just you can tell there's some interesting ideas that are kind of trying to crawl their way out, and I still like the idea of like a co-op Suicide Squad shooter. I still think something like that has potential, but it needs to not be live service slop because I never ever want I never ever want to see Harley Quinn using a giant minigun in that way ever again.
What about a generic AK-47, Wyatt?
All right.
Or Deadshot
On that
using a
note,
giant minigun.
let's move on
Disgusting.
to Alex.
Okay, this was a game that I had forgotten for a while, and then I played it again so- somewhat recently, a while ago, still though. And I remembered, oh, like what Brett was saying with the PvP, this is unhealthy for me to continue. The Messenger, great base game. Very fun, like sort of ninja genre bending side scrollery stuff going on.
Yeah, Base Game Messenger
Um,
is phenomenal. Very good.
I tried the DLC recently when I replayed it, and the difficulty curve makes me want to do unspeakable things. I I want to
Hope you
forget
were
this
ready
game.
for Super Meat Boy.
I want to forget this game just so that I can get probably the 15 years of my life that it is shaved off from me getting so angry at some
Just from stress
stupid shit
alone.
in there. Yeah.
All right. I picked the game I think for different reasons than everyone else here picked their games. I picked No Rest for the Wicked, and I want to be very clear. This isn't because I think No Rest for the Wicked is a bad game. I actually think it's a very good game.
To experience it for the first time again, that type of...
No, not that. Specifically, I want to forget the marketing. Because I am a huge ARPG fan. I'm a huge fan of looters. They are the primary genres that I play. I work on an ARPG. Like, this is my bread and butter, right? Love this genre to death. No Rest for the Wicked continually advertised itself as an ARPG, launched and was far closer to like a Souls-like or something similar, if not even more punishing just from an isometric perspective. And I think had they not primed me with ARPG, I would have had a really good time treating it more like Elden Ring or something, right? And less like a Diablo. And I think legitimately that's kind of what has put me off of No Rest for the Wicked until it's out officially, because I kind of just want to let it sit until it's ready at this point, because there were
It
a
also
lot
has
of
a
just...
lot of other issues.
But to my understanding, I think a lot of those have been fixed.
Well, that's good.
I've heard a lot of really good stuff about the newer early access stuff for No Rest for the Wicked, but I'm confident to just let it sit, and then I'll hop back in when it's released, because I think the game is gorgeous. Moon Studios has done phenomenal work in the past. I love Ori. I love the rest of their catalog. And I think I will probably love No Rest for the Wicked when it's done, but I do think it just needs, like, I need time to reset my headspace as to what that game is. And I think that is largely the fault of their marketing, just really priming me to think it's not what it is. Yeah, that's the only reason it's up there. All right, let's move on to weirdest game. And we're gonna move quick because we're already running as long as we expected to. We got a few more things to get through. So, last couple of awards. Weirdest game, Alex.
All right, weirdest game I played this year was Slackers: Carts of Glory. I don't know if anybody else has heard of this. It's some weird little indie game where you play as like a drunk college student or something going a downhill race in a shopping cart.
Right.
It's
phenomenal.
Multiplayer. The multiplayer is really hard to get working because it's in like beta. But once you're in a match with friends, it's a lot of fun.
My weirdest game, I guess best weirdest game, is The Tower on the Borderland, a little baby indie game that I talked about when we did our games we want to talk about for longer than we'll probably have in this episode last time. Because I probably won't have enough time to talk about it in
Precisely
this episode.
for this reason.
Right.
For exactly this. You should go and either just look into it yourself because it's a cool little third-person kind of action, kind of story thing, or just go watch our last episode talking about this. But
Yeah,
it's
this is
cool.
absolutely
It's
super high on my
atmospheric.
list now.
Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely weird. You might bounce off of it because it doesn't feel the goodest to play, but it's worth it.
Okay. Wyatt.
Yeah, abiotic factor showing up again. Like I had mentioned, it seems like a typical survival game on the surface, but it's got some really cool
I feel like some
and just
immersive sim-y
wacky
stuff.
some immersive sim stuff. There's a bit that we're all experiencing right now where you have to progress in the further into the lab, you have to break containment in this certain area, and what that has led to is this creepy, weird monster that will just show up and will not alert you to its presence other than some weird sounds. And if you don't look up from whatever you're doing and look at it, it will just instantly kill you. So you have to
It'll like
constantly be
slowly
listening
move
for it.
towards you. And the
Yeah.
even better part about that thing is only one player sees it. So in a 4-person game, like when we're most of what we've been playing, it'll show up for one person and then go to kill them, and they have to like find it and stare it down. And you can't attack it because if you attack it, it's gonna kill you. But if you stare it down, it'll go away.
So just a lot of weird stuff like that, portals to other dimensions that have very specific resources that you may need. A lot of just weird stuff in it that I think adds a lot of spice and flavor to a survival game.
Yeah. Hard agreed with that. Alex.
All right. This is the game. This is the game that I also picked for the least horny on main game award that we probably won't have time to get to, but I just felt like I needed to say that. Buckshot Roulette for the weirdest game. It's a horror game where you play Russian roulette with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Pretty great. All right. My pick for this was Slitterhead. and it's 90% because of the name.
Yeah.
But I
You
also
just shouldn't. I feel like you just shouldn't
Yep.
play it. I feel like you just. It's just
Yeah,
not
it
something
feels
to say.
weird.
it feels
It leaves a
bad
bad
Weird.
taste in
every
your
time I
mouth.
say it.
Bad mouthfeel. Bad mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel.
That said, I think Slitterhead is a really interesting game. It's super weird. The design decisions are straight out of PS1 or PS2. I think it is, if you're really a fan of like Geist or Siren or the other like body snatching games and whatnot that have been a thing, Slitterhead is super worth checking out. It's just bizarre though. There's so many things about this game that are like, especially the price. It's priced at $50, which is crazy. I think for the level of production that's in it, it feels very low budget. But kind of in an endearing way, if that makes sense. It's one of those games that feels like I'm playing a PS2 game just with modern graphics. And it's really interesting. It's a really fascinating thing where you like body jumping characters. In any given fight, you have like a main character that can do attacks and cool combos and stuff. But then you've got like 4 or 5 different just random dudes roaming about who you can take over to like suddenly you're on the other side of the enemy and can hit them from behind while they're attacking another one of your bodies. It's just fascinating. It's a really cool combat system and like set of things going on with it. Right?
Cool. Yeah, I really
Most
want to try it.
anticipated 2025 game. Alex, you're up.
Alex?
It's you.
Yep,
Alex,
I know.
there we
Sorry,
go.
I was scrolling down the list. I had to get back to it.
Yes,
All right.
Alex, it's you. That
So,
Alex, please continue.
my probably my top game anticipated is Elden Ring Night Rain. Really curious to see how they twist that formula into an interesting co-op setting. Next one I wanted to mention was Metal Gear Solid Delta. I think that game is shaping up to look really good. I was worried
Yeah,
about
looks
it,
great.
and everything I've seen looks awesome. And with a lot of question marks after words on the list is Dune Awakening, a game that I think I will really like, but it's hard to know without getting my hands on it.
Big question mark with that one. All right.
Yeah.
Brett,
Most anticipated and most feared.
that's a good award for next year.
Can't wait for the next Fortnite season, everybody. I've wrote that there like weeks ago, and it's not even funny anymore. But I wrote it there, so I had to say it anyway. I am really excited for. I don't even know how you say it because I haven't
Player
watched any of the
Obscure,
little Vidocs.
I believe.
Is it obscure?
Expedition
Or is it
33.
obscure?
Cool.
Obscure.
But
Whatever makes you feel
I-
better.
Obscure.
the little snippets of gameplay that I've seen seem really interesting. The little snippets of story that I've seen seem really interesting. Just having like a non usual suspect company turn-based game with this much production, and it's Western devs, and like what? It's just such a strange combination of things that I really want to see it succeed, because this is just a very just interesting combination of
Every time they
things.
show something for Expedition 33, I am more excited. Especially
I know,
the weird little dude that you fly around on. It's so perfect.
This will be my game that if it comes out and it sucks, I'm gonna be really pissed.
I'll be crushed.
So hopefully it doesn't do
Properly
that, because I
crushed.
really want it to be good. But also me not pre-ordering it, I think says something about how worried I am about it. Could be not good, but I really want it to be good.
All right. Wyatt.
I have a bunch, and I really couldn't trim it down, so I have quite a few here. Jump Ship comes into early access 2025. So excited!
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait for
God,
that.
I am
actually can't-
shaking in my boots.
I
We're
actually
gonna have some
can't
fun with that
explain
one.
how excited, dude. It's gonna make a great stream. I'm so excited. If they mess it up, it's gonna be a lot like Brett, and I may never recover.
I'm just gonna give up.
May never
Yeah.
recover.
It will
Split-
be devastating.
Split Fiction comes out literally next month. God, so excited. Basically anything Hazelight does at this point, I am like all in. And everything we've seen so far looks great. Deep Rock Galactic Rogue Core also comes into early access. Very excited. It's like a Deep Rock Galactic FPS roguelike kind of deal. They've been kind of hinting at this with the most recent update and kind of the stuff we're gonna see. Pretty excited about that. And then we have Hades 2, which is coming out of early access into its 1.0. I'm pretty sure in
Oh.
2025. I could be wrong, but
Huh.
I'm pretty sure last I checked it was going to be in its 1.0. I've been checking in every now and then just on some of the new updates. It's like progressing really nicely. Shocker, a super giant game is really good. And I'm just excited to play the whole thing. Give me more. Give me more.
Great.
Alrighty. Avowed was first on my list. That already came out. I haven't played it yet because I've
Whoa.
been too busy with Warframe.
I've been really
Properly
liking it.
addicted. Yeah, I've been having a great time with it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Night Rain, very excited to see that again. So I'm just gonna second that from Alex. And then I hate that it's mostly like PvP or an extraction shooter, but I still love the concept of it. Steel Hunters.
Yeah, glad it's still on there. I think it's a really interesting concept that I probably won't like because it's extraction. But
Yeah.
all right, mine is very specific. It's Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and you might be wondering, why is my most anticipated game of this year a game that's already come out before? And it's because that game came out on the Wii U and nobody played it.
Mhm.
So it doesn't count.
And Xenoblade Chronicles X is the best like mech game that I've played. It is it's a Xenoblade JRPG, proper Xenoblade style game, but where the exploration is like the main focus, and you have a massive world to explore with tons of stuff. In the Wii U version, it was like a hex grid that you use the tablet to sort of navigate and whatnot. But it's also like a fully explorable open world, and your map's the tablet. All that stuff's being streamlined to make it like an actual video game, and not the annoying weird tablet
And not a
system,
gimmick.
all the like real-time pause things. They're adding a couple of new mechs. They're adding a bunch of fun like story stuff at the end to like make it wrap up much nicer. My hope is that this is leading to it too, because this is, I think, one of the best. Like the fact that it actually progresses from being primarily on foot to progressing into the mech combat being the main focus, and then back and forth at specific times is just so much fun. It really has a great sense of like progression in that style, and you can like fully customize your mechs. It's great. You got
That's
tons of
pretty
cool
cool.
customization. You can,
So
like I
awesome.
did, stick on as many swarm missiles as possible and run around launching
As per
80,000 missiles at
usual.
every enemy, and it's great. Also, killer soundtrack. I just can't wait to play this again. I am like so pumped to play Xenoblade X again because it's so much fun. And I sold my Wii U as a child after the Wii U because I literally only played Xenoblade on it and couldn't justify keeping it. So, all right, moving in to our dishonorable mentions.
Oh boy.
There's gonna be some
Alex.
explaining to do here.
Yeah, so this one's become increasingly over the past weeks and days. My dishonorable mention is going to go to my computer, which I am now realizing does not meet minimum requirements for games.
Nah.
And it's making me sad. So I need to plan an upgrade.
Tell us that little anecdote about what happened with Indiana Jones on it.
Oh God! So
Real
yeah,
quick.
I got Indiana Jones on Game Pass. Really enjoyed the opening hours, and I went, oh hey, this has a NVIDIA patch, like the NVIDIA graphics card. You know, they do their game ready drivers when games come out, and I'm like, oh well,
Mm.
the driver design for the game ought to be help this game that's running poorly run
One
better.
would assume.
I couldn't even launch it. I assumed I could have rolled back the driver and whatnot. I probably could have put more effort into it, but at that point I said, well, looks like I'm buying this the day it comes out on PS5. um, so, had a lot of fun with the opening hours. We'll get back to you on the closing hours.
Rip.
All right.
Okay. I am not going to be hyperbolic. I'm not going to be hyperbolic because that's what you expected.
Oh.
I'm going to be completely calm and reasonable in my explanation because I
I'm
think only
expecting
one
you
other
to sh-
person here has even played it. So you other three can't even fucking say anything
No.
about how popular this game is.
Wait,
Okay?
what?
So I tried. I did buy, and I tried Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, and I did not like it at all. I think we're at the point, where at least for because I know they build it as in part as like, oh, this is gonna even challenge the people who have played FromSoft games for a long time kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, this is going to challenge the people that have played like, the newer gen stuff, like starting with Demon Souls and that sort of thing, because it's a very obvious split in the fan base to not existing to having one. So I just figured they were talking about them, and I'm just like, okay, sweet. Well, I beat the Super Zenaida ending in Last Raven, and I beat the super boss at the end of Armored Core 2 Another Age, and all right, whatever, that's fine. I never worry about FromSoft games being too hard in the base game or single player, because it's like, whatever, I understand their formula, I can do it. And the difficulty in Shadow of the Erdtree is such that I was not having fun at all. I understand the mechanic of going around and getting the little shards to make yourself stronger against the shadowed zone, but like,
Do yourself.
okay, even yes, to skadoosh yourself, but even just like the patterns of the bosses that they put you up against are just like, just not like, whether it doesn't matter if like what I think of whether I like them or not. I don't play these games to fight things that are designed like that. I play games to play a video game and not walk backwards while somebody does a 27 hit combo,
Yeah.
and then I have one open at
It's
the very end of to get one longsword strike in, and then I have to wait as the entire screen is covered in tendrils, and I have to go back to dodging back and forth over and over again. That's not the reason that I play these games. I like the back and forth, and this had not enough of that, and the punishment for not doing the crazy, stupid dance that they want you to do is a dying.
some of those boss combos are irredeemably punishing.
It wore out really, really, really quick for me, and especially with some really annoying. I usually don't have this problem, but some really annoying performance issues when it first came
Oh.
out, meaning that certain bosses that you can, because it's still pretty open, but there are certain bosses that you could run into the first week or so that the DLC came out that would just like hitch the game and just throw off your timing for an attack, reaction, or roll. And it was just a lot at once that don't think is getting fixed. So I'm out. I was out.
I will
And
say,
I don't know.
having played
I
it
don't
since
like it.
then, it was patched. It's a fair bit of it is much
The
better now.
final boss was patched so that he was less.
They patched
so that he was-
I think a lot of the problem was that the Shadow Tree blessings at the start were really hard to
They didn't
take advantage
they did
of because they were really, really not super effective. They vastly changed them in a patch and made it so that the beginning ones are way more effective than the later ones, and that they're like. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, they I believe they significantly bumped the first 10 skidoo
Yeah,
levels.
they
you
weighted
get,
them towards
and then the
bottom.
last one.
I don't know specifically with the last one, but they essentially made it much less hard at the start. And I do think like Alex and I both also played quite a lot of this. Alex has
Got
finished
into the
it.
final boss, couldn't beat the final boss.
I got lost right before the final boss and haven't gone back to it, but I do intend to at some point. This is for me in a war that we won't have time to fully get to, but the best DLC, I gave it to this game, Shadow of the Erdtree, and I was really negative on it at first, and I still am for some bosses. I think the lion dance dragon thing is super cool,
Absolute
but really
bastard.
annoying because the camera can't handle it.
Yeah.
And I also think to Brett's point, this is the limit of what you can do with Elden Ring's combat system. Like this is it.
I can't take it anymore.
Which
Like,
is
you
why I'm
cannot
so
keep
happy.
speeding it up.
Which is why I'm so happy the director said they're not gonna like speed it up anymore. They're not gonna
Because
try
I'm
to
just
make
like
it more
at this
difficult
point,
that
if
way.
you keep speeding it
God.
up, there's nowhere to go. Like you have hit the limit of
It
what
would not be
physically
fun
my
anymore,
reaction
period.
time on the controller can do. Like I'm just past.
I'm not a coked up 12-year-old.
It's,
No.
and I think that's really the thing that hits me with this is that it is just like really punishing for a lot of it. That said, some of the boss fights are the best I think I've ever played in these games. Mesmer in particular, I think is like the perfectly balanced Elden Ring boss fight, as all things should be. And yeah, I did really like this, but I totally understand why Brett has put it in dishonorable mention.
I didn't play a lot that I hated last year, other than this. So I don't know.
I have been called a psychopath for enjoying the mounted like heavy armored boss fight with the guy with the gravity lance.
Yeah, that was fine. That wasn't
Oh
hard.
yeah.
I liked him.
Get fucking thrown to the dirt.
Moving
Jesus
on
Christ,
from
Alex
Elden Ring.
just got obliterated.
We'll be here for 12 hours if we stay on it. Wyatt.
I thought I was gonna get a lot of shit from people for putting Pal World on the list, but now that I see that someone put Shadow of the Erdtree on here, I think I'm kind of okay.
You're kind of good now.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of off the hook. So, not that Power World's a terrible game. Really, I had a hard time with this because I didn't really play a lot of bad games last year. So I was kind of struggling what to put with here. So I put the game that I think out of the games that I played last year that came out last year resonated with me the least, which was Power World, because it's a survival game. It is I like
Pokemon
survival
ripoff game.
games. Yeah. So like I like survival games when they have like a big a twist in terms of the kind of typical structure of a survival game. This is not that. This is like very much a survival crafting thing through and through.
I'm curious if
And
you agree with me about
none
this,
of it-
Wyatt. Abiotic Factor has retroactively made Power World worse to me.
Oh yeah, I think most of the survival games that I've played recently, I played Enshrouded right before we played this, which definitely did not help this game at all, because Enshrouded is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's just so like the art style really didn't do anything for me. I hated how the pals and your character, but then also the environment, nothing felt incongruous with each
Cohesive.
other at all. It just was very strange. I just kind of got bored when we were playing it, and it really didn't do much for me. I know this game is really popular and a lot of people like this game. If you're into survival games, I think it's probably you're gonna have a good time. But as someone who doesn't like typical survival games, and as someone who the whole Pokemon part of it, I'm also not a Pokemon person, so that also does nothing for me. This just does not resonate with me on any level.
Yeah,
That's
all
kind of
makes
what I'm
sense.
saying too.
In character creation, you can make the character with hips wide enough that your hands entirely clip through them.
Which is funny.
That's perfect.
Very funny.
Let's fucking
That's
go!
That's a good thing. Honorable mention.
That is very funny.
Honorable
Um,
mention for the character creation.
Oh, yeah. all right, Alex.
Dishonorable mention for me. Bad Rats. Thank you, Wyatt.
You're
You
welcome.
have to say more than that. I think everybody on Earth knows about Bad Rats.
Yes.
I really don't
Go watch
want
that
to say any more
video.
than
There's
that.
a video of Alex
Go
playing
wa-
Bad Rats, and it's insane.
Go watch the video, please.
Yeah, for me, I put Dragon Age Veilguard in dishonorable mentions, and I'm conflicted about it, because as you'll see in just a moment, I also put Veilguard in honorable mentions, because I think I am dead split down the middle in this game.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I really like about it. There's a lot that I don't. I think that, to me, the design aesthetic that they went for with the characters in particular and like outfits is very antithetical to Dragon Age to me. I really don't like the movement that started in Inquisition, where they really moved away from the more fantasy medieval armors and moved into like this more high fantasy look. I think Veilguard took it a little too far. I think in Inquisition it was largely fine, but Veilguard has kind of like jumped the gun, and I think especially like the Shadow Dragon's color scheme is teal, purple, and red. Like it doesn't look
It's
good.
kind of a mess.
It doesn't look good, and it's crazy. Like it to me, it's one of those things where just like, look, I love the idea of the Antivan Crows being this like leather-clad assassin guild. What I don't love is that their leather is like royal purple, and they have like different shades of this purple on them, and they don't look like assassins. Like you can pull them out of anywhere, and you would notice them immediately.
It's also kind of weird because we've seen an Antivan Crow before that
who was just
doesn't
like a
look
dude.
that.
Like
Yeah.
Zevran's just a guy. He's
But
a
then
cool guy.
the weird part
but-
is you contrast all of that with the absolutely gorgeous environment art throughout the entire
Yeah,
game.
phenomenal environment art.
Beautiful.
And I like a lot of the main cast character designs. I really do think it's just like a thing where for me a lot of the just aesthetic of Dragon Age got kind of lost.
I really there's stuff like that about that game that I really wonder how much rolled over from when they were initially
Yeah.
supposed to be designing this as a MMO.
I 100% think most of this is from that. So
Yeah.
And like
Absolutely.
really specific recognizable faction colors that were
Totally.
required to be on everything.
that you'd like
I
progress with
think-
each faction and like absolutely
I
I see
think
that.
they
See 'em in the
took
open world.
whatever- I think they took whatever live service game that they had, and they had to cobble something together.
And what they did is admirable. I think most of this game is good, but
Yeah.
I do think it deserves to also get the dishonorable mention for like. I think it probably has maybe killed the Dragon Age franchise. As sad as I am about that, I think there's a real
I
possibility
think
that we
it's
don't
so
get a Dragon Age again.
strange that a game that really isn't that bad has killed the franchise.
It's funny how often that is the case, though.
Like I feel like this
I think
game
just because
is
it's been like kind of mediocre and it's been too long, right?
I think it's I think it's a pretty good game. It's just like I think that BioWare was already going the downhill slope.
But hey, we'll save the rest of
And
this
that this-
discussion for when we inevitably do the Veilguard
True.
podcast once Wyatt finishes. All right. Moving on to our honorable mentions. Alex, this is you.
Alex,
this
this
is
is
on
me
you.
again.
It's
Sorry.
always on you.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Veilguard. All right. I'm just starting to get tired, and I was thinking about Veilguard. All right, my 3 here are, I'll go through them quick. Web Fishing, Balatro, and Aliens Dark Descent.
Very good.
I think I mentioned some of these in the last episode.
Web Fishing's great.
Yeah.
Balatro is also great.
And
I haven't
what
played
more is to be
Aliens
said
much.
about Balatro?
All right, Brian.
My little list goes like this. Hollow Body is a really cool little survival horror, Silent Hill 2-y type game, but in a cyberpunk abandoned city.
Brad.
And it's got some cool areas and cool characters. Sorry We're Closed is that, but gay, and Killer 7 also is in there.
Great character
I'm not joking.
designs.
It's like, how else would you describe it? It's very cool. I need to play more of it. I haven't finished that one. Hollow Body I did get 2 out of the 3 endings on though. Rogue Flight I talked about last time. It's a cool rail shooter. Still need to get that last ending, but it's really fun, really hot blooded. And Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter is very unique and cool and weird for being such an old game. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Great picks, Wyatt.
I'm gonna show my colors again. Star Wars Outlaws. This game is a lot of fun, and y'all are fucking insane, and y'all are too mean. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I am still going back to this one. I really do want to finish this one in the next little while. I'm having an absolute blast. This did not come out last year, but I've been really getting into like space. What would the genre be? Because it's not a space sim. It'd be like kind of
It's like a space RPG,
action, space
arcade
RPG.
action thing.
If you've ever played Freelancer, very similar to Freelancer. Everspace 2, of all the ones that I've been trying this year, has been the best. It's so polished. It has so much content in it. It's actually every
Does
time
it
I
got
play
swarm
other
missiles?
space games, it has swarm missiles. It has lots of swarm missiles, in fact. It's the game that it's
Ryan
the bar
is
that I
downloading
hold
it as we
other-
speak.
I've already played it, Brett.
Oh.
It is the bar that I hold other space games to, which is unfair because it's just that good. It's so polished and just so. I almost put it in best controls of the year. And then finally, Dungeons of Hinterberg. It was such a hard fight for personal game of the year between this and my game of the year. Dungeons of Hinterberg is fantastic. And if the game that is my personal game of the year had not come out, it absolutely would be my game of the year. Just
Can't wait to play more of
excellent.
Hinterberg.
Excellent.
All right, Alex.
Honorable mentions for me: Dungeons of Hinterberg again. One of the Game Pass games that I've gone through, I have completely finished.
I'm really
My
honestly, I'm
God.
very surprised this wasn't your game of the year.
I am too.
Honestly, the ending kept it from personal game for me over my other pick.
It has such a wonderful gameplay flow that's very easy to pick up and put down, and there's so much about it is just so polished feeling. There's one more that I'm going to sneak in here really quick, and that is Warframe 1999. I think that they really managed to get the flow of the story of the expansion down with how they do the rank up system. I think that it meshes well together in this
And
latest
hey, it
installment.
added a dating sim, so
Yeah, very true.
and that's
I did
not a
not know
joke.
that. I did not
All
know
right. Moving on to my honorable mentions. First, Zenless Zone Zero. This is just here because it's a gacha that I'm still playing. It's the only gacha that I've actually stuck with. I think it's just because I really appreciate the like 2000s nostalgia of Zenless Zone Zero, owning like a video store being a main central conceit. And a lot of the designs are feel very early 2000s. I've been having a lot of fun with it and still am playing it. Road 96, a game that I have intended to make a Game Pass game for a while since it got added, but that there's been too much other stuff. I think this is a really phenomenal choice-based like narrative roguelike. And I absolutely recommend, and it does have an ending. It has like you go through it a number of times and eventually you hit an ending. Phenomenal. Highly recommend playing this to anyone that likes those types of games. Space Marine 2, I just had to put it here because I didn't put it anywhere else and I really liked it. It's just not, it didn't fit into anything else for me. So we already talked about the game a bunch. Veilguard. Veilguard to me, again, there's a lot I didn't like. There's a lot I did like. I think I am really satisfied with how they closed out this arc of the Dragon Age story. Hopefully it gets a continuation because I do think the setup here is really interesting. But I'm really glad that we got a conclusion. I felt like in general my Inquisition character choice was respected. Having played a Soul of Ellen Inquisitor in Inquisition and then carrying her forward into this game was really, really interesting, and I think really improved my experience overall with Solus as a character. And yeah, I just think Veilguard is a really well done narrative of Dragon Age stuff, even if a lot of the individual bits of writing and whatnot I don't love. All right.
Very choppy, but it finishes all the strands that it should.
You wouldn't know yet, what?
Well, that's what I've
what
heard.
the fuck are you talking about?
Look, the
I've been
final like
hearing.
5 hours of Veilguard are some of the best BioWare stuff that I think I've played. It's up there with Mass Effect 2 for me. Not quite as good, but up there. All right.
Nobody played that far because it's too woke.
Okay,
Oh.
let's move
No,
on
I'm kidding, I'm
to.
kidding.
Can we go back and say best antagonist of the year's gaming discourse in 2020?
That's
that's for
always.
sure.
Yep.
Jesus
That's perpetual.
Christ. Fucking Christ.
It hasn't cooled down, that's for sure.
Nope.
All right. Personal game of the years. Alex, kick us off.
All right, you just heard about it. Space Marine 2. I'm a big old Warhammer fan. It won't focus. I've got one right here though. Loved it. I love Warhammer. I play Space Marines. I love a co-op action shooter game. It hit everything I wanted it to be, basically.
Hell yeah.
And they're still coming out with levels and cosmetics, and nothing makes me play a game like more cosmetics to unlock.
Mm.
Can't knock it.
It's true.
All right. Brett.
Okay, my game of the year for 2024 is going to be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and I really was not expecting that, but it really, really is that good in my opinion, and I am a total nerd for Indiana Jones. I am absolutely extremely biased in favor of it, but why would you play an Indiana Jones game if you actively don't like is there something wrong
You're
with you?
truly
Why would you
making
play
me
a game if
so
you're not
excited to
interested?
finish playing this.
It's
good.
incredible.
It's
If you're an Indiana Jones nerd, it's the best game ever made. If you're a history nerd, it's like so interesting. So much is well researched, and it brings you to parts of the world that you might not even like have cared about before, honestly, and makes you care about them. If you're a Bible nerd, by God, will you be happy because it's Indiana Jones, baby. And it's just such a weird thing to have it's a light immersive sim, but it's an immersive sim, and it's just a full ass AAA immersive sim where you play as Indiana Jones. I don't know, like all the music is there, the funny is there, the like just brutally murdering Nazis is there. I
Sound
don't know,
design
like,
is
what
there.
it's the dude just like beating somebody with a sledgehammer because you threw it at them is amazing.
You got the sound of the
Um,
whip just right.
Yeah, just everything is so good. If and when an episode gets to happen for this game in the future, I'll be very happy. But highly recommend it.
Fantastic. Wyatt.
The only game that could have beat out Dungeons of Hinterberg for this year was Neva. I love this game so much, and as I talked about when we were talking about when we did the pre-show episode for this, I had talked about how I feel like I had played Dungeons of Hinterberg right at the right time and in my life, and Neva is very similar in a way, but it's so personal to me that it's not even a story that I want to share with people because it's too personal. Um, but I loved how just simple and straightforward it was. But feel like even with only one word of dialogue in the entire game, I guess technically two, but it was able. I feel like it was able to convey so much just through visuals and just the most striking art style that I've seen all year and in a good long while, I think. And even combat that for a first time whack at combat from this studio, it's pretty simple, but it damn it feels great and it's super cool and I love how they the enemies get more complicated and interesting. There's an enemy where it seems like it's just like a falling kind of block from the ceiling, but then like an enemy kind of squishes out from underneath the block and like pushes it at you. So sometimes you have to jump on top of the block or you have to jump over it, and it kind of like tries to charge you. It's super interesting stuff. It did make me cry like once or
It's always a
twice.
sign of a good game.
Yep.
Yeah, just visually arresting and beautiful, and please just play it because it's fantastic.
Very excited to eventually play that too. Alex.
If this is far from the only reason, but if Dungeons of Hinterberg was an honorable mention because I finished it once, Sifu is my game of the year because I finished it twice. Oh god, getting both the good and the bad ending. Bad ending first, of course, because I like killing bad guys. Um, oh my god. It has a solid kung fu revenge story. Really just always so fun and pleasant to look at, visual
Crazy
design
cool
and
art
art style.
style.
Wonderful.
So good.
Buttery smooth combat. Um a lot more combat and like challenge stages after you finish the story and things like that. It kept me playing for so long, and I enjoyed every second of it.
I'm guessing you're gonna agree with this statement, Alex, but Sifu is the type of game to me that like when a studio releases a game like Sifu, that's the watch everything they do
Yes,
from now
absolutely.
on. Like Sifu is so cool. And hey, they're making a crazy soccer game.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
look at how much
they're
we're
making a
hyping up
Shaolin
the
soccer
potential
game.
of their soccer game, which is not something I don't think any of us would be excited for
That was
otherwise.
not on anyone's bingo card.
I'm excited for it because Sifu is so good. Yeah, it was one of my favorite games of the year released as well. So I'm really glad you've enjoyed it, Alex.
Oh, it's mega.
Rock solid parries.
Yes. Oh yeah.
All right. My personal game of the year, I mentioned it earlier, for soundtrack and for best voice acting, it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This was a really hard thing for me to pick. There was a lot of games that I think were really jockeying for game of the year this year. Astrobot was incredibly close for me. Like a Dragon potentially could have been it had I finished it. And Like a Dragon could be it this year. I don't know yet. I need to finish that game. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to me was like, it's one of those games that I played the entire way through in just a really tight chunk of time. I played nothing else while I was playing it, basically. I was so enraptured by the game. And it wasn't like I just did the main story. I near 100%ed this. I think the only thing I didn't do was like some of the random challenges that Chadley had. Because I could not be bothered.
Like, how could you? His name's Chadley.
Everything else I did. And I think just everything in Rebirth, I ended up being such a fan of. The sheer like variety of gameplay as well. There's like a Rocket League mini game where you play Red 13 running around playing soccer
God.
on a beach episode.
That's
Basically,
fucking based.
it's so much fun. And it's all optional like side stuff, but it's so entertaining. Whenever they ask you to do a weird thing in the game, there's always gameplay associated with it. So like the honeybee scene in Remake is a dance like rhythm minigame. A similar game is used here, but it's for marching band, where you have to like pretend to be a soldier and you go through the routine of doing the whole like organizing the troops. You have to go like find your squad and tell them you're the new commander around this town and like gather everyone up. And it's very funny. There's a ton of ways it can turn out. There's like a mechanic where you organize what formation you want for your troop of soldiers to be marching in. That can like make it easier or harder, and they all have different animations. And they just build into like this final routine that you do, which is just like hilarious. It's a very funny moment, but it's also very interesting and just a well set up thing. I think overall, just like everything that I needed to land about Rebirth did. I do think Rebirth's biggest like problem is that it needs the third part. Similar to Remake, it doesn't have an ending that is conclusive, as I think we all knew it would have. And there's gonna be a third game. That third game is like the finale of the Final Fantasy VII remakes, and that's probably gonna make or break the trilogy of remakes. But Rebirth is really, I think, proving out that they can do a really phenomenal job with it. And I cannot wait to see that final part. And I think especially like the final hours of Rebirth were much cleaner to me than Remake. I think Remake had a really confusing and weird
Thank God.
ending. and not even to say
Because-
that like I don't like that ending. I think there is a lot of cool discussion to be had about it. Rebirth's ending is a lot less weird and confusing, even though it still has cool things to discuss and like theorize about before the next game comes out. It just really, I think, lands much better. And yeah, I really just think Rebirth was a really phenomenal experience, and I have picked it up again on PC so I can play it again in a better looking version, because I love this game that much. All right, that's it. We did our list of awards. We have a number of side awards that I'm sure we'll talk about over the coming weeks. As usual, mention one or two of them every other episode. But that's our award show, which means it's time for our shoutouts. We'll go down the list again. Alex, what do you have for a shoutout?
I've got something good. I got a physical prop here.
I gotta go
Nice.
grab my
So
shit.
I was at the comic book store I frequent a few days back,
As you should be.
and my friend who works there says to me, "Hey, you like Mega Man?" And I go, "Yeah, I do. Why? Are we talking like the games or the character? What are you watching the new short film on Amazon Prime?" They go, "Come over here. What do you think of Mega Man, but he's retired from heroics and is a dentist and produced for me,
Huh? Oh, that's literally what he
Mr.
is.
Mega Man?" Of course, the blur doesn't want to do that. This
Why
is a
is that
manga.
real?
This is real. This is. Let me just read for you this. Sorry to take up more time. This paragraph on the back. The days of battle against Dr. Wily are long since gone. The world no longer needs Mega Man, and a grown-up Rock now leads a peaceful life working as a dentist. The Robot Masters have new careers as well. Cut Man is a barber, Flame Man is a chef, and Top Man is an online influencer.
Oh my god.
Yet, as these dreamlike days pass by, a shadow of turmoil lurks on the horizon. I have not read this yet. I do not know if it's good,
We need to do
but
a
I
book club.
could not resist picking it
That's
up.
incredible. That might be
when
the
my
single best
friend
shout out we've
said-
ever had.
Yeah, right.
What do you think of Mega Man as a dentist?
That's beautiful.
That's hard to beat.
Wow.
All right, Brett, you're up next.
Ryan, you'll be happy about this. I've thrown to the wayside. I'm tired of the internet telling me what opinions to feel, and basically I'm just really bored and haven't been in the mood to play anything for some reason. So I, on a whim, just picked up good old Final Fantasy X, and I'm finally playing it for myself. And I'm gonna be.
I
calling a
can't
lot
wait
of
for your
people
detailed
idiots pretty
breakdown on the
soon.
laugh scene.
Oh, well, I can do it right now, but we've already been going for too long.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
already
save it for
past
later. That'll be another shout out. All right, Wyatt.
Yeah. I'll go next. So I've been collecting a lot of board game and card games recently. It's been a hobby that I've picked up over the last few years. And for people who do collect a lot of card games, I'm sure you've run into this before. You pick up a new card game, looks really cool. The box that they come in so many times is shit. Like it's one that's designed to be really thin and you like hang it up on the hook in the store, but it's like you have to split the deck in two and then put it back in this box that's really difficult to like not rip. Has anyone ever come across that before?
Yeah,
Maybe just me. They
Yeah.
suck and I hate having to deal with them. So for a Valentine's Day gift, my girlfriend got me one of these card box things, and it has this cool magnetic top that you can just rip off if you want to,
Ooh.
and it can hold not one but two different card games. That comes with a couple of dividers, so I can divide
Ooh.
between two different card games. So I have a full ass version of Nope and a full ass version of Phase 10.
Wyatt, I
in
love
one
you
box.
showing off this as you're now handling a Magic Commander deck box.
And it comes with this cool thing.
Yeah, you
that
see,
you
that's
can,
where you put your commander when you play
I don't know
Commander in
what-
Magic.
I don't know what that means, but you can take this bit out and replace it with whatever you want. So what I might do is
Ooh.
get some.
It looks
more
like it
of these.
fits a graded card.
It like fits.
Yeah, really.
You could I could put in my own custom thing. It just says like, oh, this has Nope and it has Phase 10 in it, and so I can organize my cards.
Perfect.
And it's so cool, and I don't care if it's for Magic. I don't
Now
give a
you're an
shit because I
honorary
don't play-
Magic player,
I don't
Wyatt.
play shit for
Oh,
nerds.
no.
Okay?
Oh, really?
All right, Alex.
Shout out to Supple Milk Fat. But that's the worst.
That's it. Close the
way
show.
to-
We're done. We're done.
I need
my
some
dad-
explanation.
We're done.
My,
Oh, now
my,
we're getting demonetized.
my dad got my dad ordered 12 pounds of French butter. That is very good.
And so you decided the best
You know,
way
you
to.
could have said butter.
No, he couldn't have. He
He's
absolutely
not
could not
capable of
have.
that.
See? Brett gets it.
Don't you understand?
All right, well, I'm gonna bring us back to the realm of sanity, and I've achieved.
Oh my
Big Boy.
God.
Yeah.
Perfect
What the fuck
grade
is that?
Gundam.
Yeah.
You call that sanity? That man's huge.
It's a perfect grade Gundam, and I'm so excited. Look at how many
that's a
things
solid
are in the
afternoon and a
box.
half.
Oh
What
my
the
God.
fuck?
So many things in that box. It's big. It's a big boy
Holy-
box, and I'll show it off again once it's done, which will probably be in like 3 months. So
To the bottom of the backlog it goes.
it's actually it's pretty high up the backlog, but I want to finish the high grades I have first, so I can get rid of the boxes, make some more space in the closet. You know. All right. That's the show. We did it. As always, Tuesdays podcast goes live on the podcast platform of your choice, YouTube and Twitch. See you next week. We got some Game Pass games to talk about.
So anyway,
Oh
the
my
breakdown
God.
of the laughing scene in Final Fantasy X is basically that this entire time everybody reacting to it as if it was genuine is really stupid, and the fact that meme has gone on so far is actually okay. Yeah, the bit is over here.